A short-haired woman in white was sitting at the desk with her back facing him. It was midnight, and the moon shone with a wispy light. The woman's hands were on the table, and she was motionless. There was no light or sound. The night just seemed so still. Liu Sheng was lying in bed, peering at the woman by the table from under his quilt. He began to wonder as he remembered that he had gone to bed at 9:30 p.m. Now, judging from the darkness outside, it was 4 a.m. at most. When he woke up in his bedroom, the woman was already there at his desk. Where did the woman come from? Liu Sheng squinted, but he had 5D short-sightedness and could only make out that she was a young woman in a white dress. The weird thing was, he had no idea where the woman in white had come from. His mother never wore white, and his elder sister never did too. His sister was always in a uniform, plus she had gone to college far away from home. It was terrifyingly quiet. Liu Sheng's brows were knitted together. He blunked to clear his vision, wanting to know who the woman was. However, it was too dark. There was not much he could see. What made it more terrifying was the fact that he could not move his body right then. In a trance, he seemed to hear someone talking. The voice was coming from right behind him by the bedside. It was out of his field of vision. The voice was very close, as though the person was staring at him while talking to his back. He seemed to be able to sense that there were two people. Pairs of strange and cold eyes were staring at him as the indistinct chattering continued. Goosebumps formed all over his skin. Then there was a clicking sound like someone had opened the door and walked in. Suddenly, all the other sounds went dead. Liu Sheng snapped out of his trance, only to find that the woman in white at the desk was getting to her feet slowly and quietly, but her back was still facing him. Her long white sleeves were loose and empty like a long skirt, while the movements of her body were stiff and unnatural like a robot's. Liu Sheng wanted to say something, but he was horrified to find that he could not even make a sound. He was trembleog like he had a cramp. All his muscles tensed up, and his teeth chattered. Cold sweat drenched his undershirt. Tack, 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 tack. Again, footsteps were heard at the doorway. The entity that made those footsteps walked right up to the tail end of the bed and stopped. Liu Sheng was terrified. He tried to pull himself under the quilt and relax his body so that he could lie as flat as possible on the bed. That way, no one would know he was there. He thought that as long as he lay flat, whoever it was may believe that it was just a thick quilt on the bed. Yet, he could not even move a muscle. His legs and back were experiencing a horrible cramp. It was so bad that he had to use all his might to overcome the trembleog in pain. Tack, tack, tack. The footsteps were approaching the head of his bed. Liu Sheng's heart was in his mouth. He tried to close his eyes so that he would not see what was coming, but the inexplicable sense of horror made even blinking impossible. Suddenly, a pair of cold hands slipped under the quilt and grabbed his feet. Liu Sheng screamed and bounced up from his bed. He was doused in sweat. His face was pale, and his bloodshot eyes were wide open. Huff, 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 huff. He gasped with his head lowered, drawing as much fresh air into his lungs as possible. I had the same dream again. He bent his leg and reached out to touch the spot where the pair of cold hands had grabbed him earlier. There was nothing there, as usual. There was no scar, and Liu Sheng felt no pain. Despite that, the feeling was so vivid and real. The sun had risen. It was now morning. Liu Sheng climbed out of bed when someone knocked on the door. "Why were you screaming earlier?" The worried voice of his elder sister traveled from behind the door. With both hands, Liu Sheng rubbed his forehead, which had a copious amount of sweat. He took a deep breath. "I'm fine. Just had a nightmare." "You'd better be. Did anything happen in school?" "You've been very jumpy recently," said his elder sister. "I'm fine, really." "Just had a nightmare," Liu Sheng replied after a pause. "Breakfast is ready. Get yourself out of bed and drink some warm milk. You'll feel better," his elder sister urged with concern before she walked away. Liu Sheng sat by the bed, the dream still lingering in his head. It was not his first encounter with that dream. He had been getting the same dream for 3 consecutive days. Each time, the dream would end with him not being able to move and someone grabbing his feet. He subconsciously reached down to touch his feet. Then he got up. He went to his desk and pulled the curtains open. The blazing sun suddenly lit up the bedroom. He could even see the dust particles that were floating in the air. Liu Sheng was an ordinary high school student. After spending 3 years in Huiyan High School, he was about to take the college entrance exam. His dad ran a grocery store and his mom was a kindergarten teacher. Their combined annual income was no more than $100,000. His elder sister was still in college, which was a distance away from home. She had returned home for a short stay and would go back to college in a few days. So he was alone at home most of the time. Liu Sheng opened the door and remained silent. Outside was a clean corridor filled with sunlight. He heard the clicking of dishes. His elder sister was cleaning up in the kitchen. Liu Sheng entered the kitchen, picked up a glass of warm milk from the countertop, and gulped it down at once. His elder sister, Liu Xiao, never liked to dress up. She was always in a white t-shirt and a pair of jeans, not the tight-fitting type, but the loose-fitting ones. The only things that were unique about her were her grace and poise, as well as her dark hair that cascaded down to her waist. Liu Sheng put down the glass, grabbed a piece of hot bread and nibbled it. Dad and Mom aren't home today. I'll take care of your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but I'm leaving tomorrow. You have to take care of yourself and not make me worry about you. His elder sister turned and took off her apron before she sat on a high stool by the countertop. She was also holding a glass of milk in her hand, and she took a sip as she babbled on. Liu Sheng did not know what to say. Do you have enough pocket money? I've been doing some part-time work, and I earned quite a bit during the holidays. Let me know if you need any money. Liu Xiao was always worried about this and that. It was in her blood. I have enough, Liu Sheng said. Liu Xiao thought for a moment. What specialty products do you like? There's a trade fair near my college. I've been there. They feature Kongxi specialties, and it's said that they make fine porcelain dolls. I could post you one if you'd like. Many of my classmates like it. Liu Xiao started to babble again. Liu Sheng listened to her silently. It was only 10 minutes later that he obligingly responded, There's nothing that I want. Okay, but don't always lock yourself in your room. Get out there and meet people. No girl likes a nerd. Liu Xiao sounded helpless. Like her best friends in her dorm, she was family-oriented, and her boring younger brother was her biggest concern. Whenever her best friend's elder brother, who was dull and unmarried at 40, came to mind, she would feel a sense of urgency. I got it. But Liu Sheng had always been that way. There was silence for a while as the two just bowed their heads and ate their breakfast. They quickly polished off all the slices of bread on the plate and the milk in the glasses. His elder sister put her hand down and looked up at Liu Sheng. Sheng, I work during my free time in college and I have enough money. If you're ever in need, call me. Got it. Liu Sheng bowed his head. Sheng. Liu Xiao suddenly reached out and pressed her hand on Liu Sheng's left shoulder. Sheng was Liu Sheng's nickname at home, and only those who were closest to him called him that. You're a man now. Please help Dad and Mom when I'm not around. They're having problems of their own. A child has gone missing from the kindergarten where Mom works in, and the child's from Mom's class. So she has to deal with the problem. Although Mom's fine, she has to bear some of the responsibility. Her pay's been cut. Liu Sheng nodded. Don't worry about me, sis. I'm fine. But why do you look so ill? Liu Xiao was worried. Really, Liu Sheng was stunned. Go see for yourself in the mirror. Liu Xiao released his shoulder helplessly. Liu Sheng hurriedly left the kitchlo and went into the bathroom. He saw his face in the mirror as soon as he looked up. It was pale, and his lips were gray. Did you have insomnia last night? Why don't you go and sleep again? Liu Xiao was heard saying outside the bathroom. Liu Sheng touched his lips. They were dry and starting to peel. I just had a nightmare last night. I'll be fine after a while. Liu Sheng played down her concern because he did not want his family to worry about him, even though the nightmare seemed real. Fine then. I've got stuff to do, so I'm leaving now. When you get back from school, reheat the food. Don't worry about me. Dad and Mom will be at Grandpa's place today. That means you'll be alone. Don't forget the key when you go out. Got it, Liu Sheng calmly responded. He then heard the sound of the door closing, and the house returned to silence. Liu Sheng stood in front of the mirror alone, looking at his face. He suddenly had a gut feeling that his nightmare would not simply go away. I hope it's just an ordinary dream. Liu Sheng exited the bathroom and walked into the living room, where there were 2 Y100 bills on a long wooden table. The green bills changed colors and had different lusters depending on the viewing angle. Liu Sheng reached out and took the money without a word. He would have to live on this money for the next 2 months. Previously, his pocket money was Y100 a month with school-provided meals. Now it was Y200 for 2 months. That was Y25 a week, and slightly over Y3 a day. With only Y3 a day, I must live frugally. Liu Sheng got to his feet and entered his room. He then changed into his school uniform. On the left chest of his blue and white uniform was a school badge with a rooster pattern and the word Huiyan. Liu Sheng packed his school bag, changed into a pair of color-matching blue and white sneakers, and hurried out the door. He walked out of the housing area, passing by some vegetable sellers before hopping on an old bus at the bus stop next to the neighborhood's gate. The bus rocked all the way for more than 10 minutes. He finally reached his destination, squeezed himself out of the crowded bus, and ran straight into school. The school bell rang as soon as he stepped into his classroom. Most of his classmates were already there as the class was about to begin. The teacher had just walked into the classroom and was getting his teaching materials ready. Liu Sheng quickly walked to his seat and sat down. He looked up at the lectern. The foreign language teacher adjusted his black-rimmed glasses and slowly flipped open the teaching materials, while he occasionally cast his eyes over the students, who subconsciously behaved and remained in their seats. Liu Sheng was no exception. Today, however, his elder sister's words kept ringing in his head. Liu Sheng reached for the meager Y200 in his pants pocket, Filiog a little depressed. His grandfather had a sudden cerebral infarction and I needed to borrow money for treatment. Liu Sheng's family had exhausted all savings, and his elder sister was forced to work as well as study at the same time. When that came to mind, Liu Sheng sighed softly. It may be a difficult time, but it's not too bad. He snapped out of his daze, and suddenly the nightmare from last night crossed his mind again. That dream was so realistic. The school bell rang, and Liu Sheng put the thought to the back of his mind. He took out the textbook from his bag to concentrate on the lesson. Yet no matter how hard he tried to concentrate, the nightmare, his grandfather, who was about to undergo surgery, and his family's financial situation kept creeping into his mind. Each lesson came and went, and the final class was about to end. Liu Sheng, are you okay? The girl sitting in the front row tapped Liu Sheng's table. Fine. Liu Sheng glanced up calmly. The girl had a slightly oval and stretched fox-like face, as well as slender eyes that did not fit the attractive category. Her loose and puffy school uniform covered most of her body, and the only striking feature about her was her fair skin. Her name was Anya Yan, and she was one of Liu Sheng's few best friends in the temporary class. Anya Yan often borrowed erasers, pencils, and similar stuff from him. Are you sure there's nothing wrong? Anya Yan was somewhat boyish, and she liked anime. She rarely mingled with girls, and most of her best friends were boys. Nothing, Liu Sheng shook his head. Anya Yan reached out and patted Liu Sheng on the shoulder. You look a mess today. I know that there'll be a gymnastic session later. Let me bring you there to feast your eyes, Liu Sheng forced a smile. What's with that reaction? Don't you guys like to go to the gymnastic club to see chicks? Ouch. Before Anya Yan could finish her sentence, Liu Sheng pinched the back of her hand. Then, Liu Sheng retracted his hand. This best friend of his had a problem. She liked to swear. Liu Sheng, are you out of your mind? Look out. Here's my invincible sacred palm. Anya Yan got to her feet, and her hand went straight for Liu Sheng's face. But Liu Sheng managed to grab a book and block her move. She was too predictable and such a simple-minded crazy lass. Why do you treat me like this when I show you kindness by taking you to see the good stuff? Anya Yan did not back down. Instead, she continued her attack. Unfortunately, Liu Sheng blocked her every move. A few classmates looked on with interest and laughed. The history teacher at the lectern was inured to the farce. He glanced at them, rubbed his bald head, and pretended like he did not see anything. They were in the last few months of their 3rd year in high school. Most teachers would close an eye and let the students have some fun as a reward for their hard work. Soon the sound of the bell rang in the air, and the class was over. Xiaoyan, are you going to look for the new cassette tape at noon? A girl came up to Anya Yan and whispered into her ear. Of course, why not? I need one last tape to complete my collection of Zhang and I. This time I have to get it. The two girls started jabbering. Liu Sheng cast his eyes on the girl with Anya Yan. The girl was wearing a school uniform, but it was paired with a pure white denim skirt, under which a pair of long legs were exposed. Her skirt barely covered half of her thighs. While she had safety pants on, her long legs still attracted a lot of attention from the boys. Liu Sheng was no exception, but he had pretty good self-control. He just took a glance and looked away. However, the more he refrained from looking, the more girls with long legs sashayed before him. They sat with their legs crossed, sometimes wiggle-og around. Their skin screamed of youthfulness under the sun. Their seductive, curvy bodies and delicate skin were arousing. And Liog, you crazy bitch, how dare. You grab my boobs suddenly, Anya Yan screamed. She jumped up and chased after the long-legged girl, who turned around and ran. Laughter filled the air, but it also gave Liu Sheng a headache. And Liog, nicknamed Coco, was a little beauty in their class. She always tied her hair in a ponytail, and she had gifted breasts as well as a near-perfect body thanks to all year-round gymnastics practice. So she was kind of a red-hot girl in their class. It was said that some boys from inside and outside the class had fought each other over her. Boring. Liu Sheng shook his head, packed his books, and put them in the desk drawer before he went to the cafeteria. The food in the cafeteria was appetizing. In a sea of relatively empty rows of metal tables and chairs, Liu Sheng sat and ate silently. Scrambled egg with tomatoes and 2 tails of rice were all he had for lunch. It was simple, yet fragrant. Liu Sheng kept a daily routine. He would go to class every day, and once he was home, he would do his homework and revision of past year exam papers until late at night before he hit the sack. He would get up the next day and repeat the same routine. His parents usually went to work early in the morning and came back late. His elder sister, who was also a student, was about to return to her college soon. She came home only because her grandfather was seriously ill. This is really boring. Liu Sheng scooped up a spoonful of rice and stuffed it in his mouth. His gaze traveled as the students in the cafeteria came and went, but things were mostly uninteresting. Coming from an ordinary family, he had no super talents or extraordinary IQ and EQ. Even at school, his academic performance was only average and unremarkable. This was because he lacked passion, but it was also for this reason that he could remain calm no matter what happened. The second reason was that he was a weirdo who had awakened memories of his past life. Nearly 30 years of past life memories had made him almost nonchalant of his current life. The college entrance examination in his past life was not much different than the current one. To him, it was only a number game, and it was dull to go through everything again. The level of technology here is only similar to a newly formed China. Cars, airplanes, and tech gadgets have become common, but it's still a far cry from the most prosperous period of my past life. Liu Sheng sighed quietly. After tasting the convenience of mobile payment and fast internet, now he was back to an era where computer games were still pretty primitive. He was not in a good mood. Nonetheless, adaptability was his biggest strength. After more than 10 years, he had long become accustomed to the life of an ordinary student. Liu Sheng knew well the concept of the tall poppy syndrome. That was why he never showed his mature side, because being able to live in peace was not a coincidence. After spending a busy day in school, Liu Sheng declined Anya Yan's invitation to go snacking in the afternoon. It was not that he was not interested. He loved the food on the snack street near his school, but he could only spend $3 a day. He could not be spendthrift. Therefore, he boarded the free shuttle and went home. Liu Sheng sat in a window seat, looking at the old streets that swiftly flew past him. The curvy reliefs of flowers and birds on the edge of plaques and the corners of walls reminded him of his nightmare from last night. Next stop, Old Town Textile Factory. The female voice speaking standard Zilao dialect jolted Liu Sheng out of his daze. He grabbed his grayish-white bag, got to his feet, and gave his seat to an old lady who had just boarded the bus. Then he held the overhead handrail and moved slowly through the crowded bus toward the exit. "Stop pushing, young man. Be careful, don't piss people off." "Ouch, my foot, you've stepped on my foot." Are you dreaming? People began to grumble and make noises like touch-activated toys. Liu Sheng could not care less. He was 1.75 meters in height and possessed a body with healthy muscles beneath his uniform. Besides his fair skin, he looked pretty ordinary. The automatic door swung open with a hiss. Liu Sheng jumped off the bus, took a deep breath, and looked back into the coach. 7 to 8 people boarded the bus that he had just gotten off. It was packed like a can of sardines. The door slowly shut and the bus left the bus stop. His home was just in the Huilian residential area, which was 10 meters right of the bus stop. The gate to the residential area was an iron arc, and on it, a sign that read Huilian Neighborhood hung askew. Every day, vegetable sellers would bring vegetables in their bamboo baskets and sell them on both sides of the gate. People would stop by and haggle with the sellers. The temperature in the late afternoon had dropped to the mid-20s on the Celsius scale, which was not as hot as the temperature during midday. Liu Sheng walked past the rusty red iron gates straight down the slope into the neighborhood and came to the 5th block. He turned right into the stairwell of Block 11. There were advertisements of every kind, locksmiths, plumbing, moving services, and whatnot, covering the walls of the corridor. Liu Sheng walked up the stairs and suddenly felt something slimy under his foot. He raised his foot and found that he had stepped on ice cream, with the white, creamy stuff staining the sole of his white sneakers. He knitted his brows as he scraped the sticky stuff off his shoe on the staircase. He had barely cleaned it up before he continued his climb. Arriving on the 3rd floor, Liu Sheng took out his key, deftly opened the security door of the first unit on the left, and walked in. Dad Liu Sheng stood at the doorway and called out, but there was no one at home. After he changed into his slippers and closed the door behind him, Liu Sheng walked straight past the living room into his bedroom. In his room, he could not help but look at the desk, which reminded him of the figure who had sat in the chair in his dream the previous night. He remained silent as he walked over and gently pulled the chair out to sit on it. He snugged down on the soft fabric cushion and the hard seat back. Sitting down after a long day at school, he felt drowsy. So, Liu Sheng got back up. He did not dare sleep at the table, because the scene from last night's nightmare made him uneasy. He would usually take a short half-an-hour nap when he got home every afternoon. The nightmare from the previous night may have been scary, but it was just a dream, Liu Sheng thought. He hesitated but still approached the bedside. He took off his school uniform, climbed into bed, and pulled the quilt over his belly. The red sunset outside the window spilled into the bedroom like blood, splashing on the desk and floor tiles. In his stupor, Liu Sheng's consciousness slowly drifted away. He had no idea how long he ended up sleeping. A soft cry suddenly woke him from his slumber. It sounded like a woman was sobbing, or was she singing? He was not sure. Sadness, desperation, and shrill cries were accompanied by occasional rapid breathing. Liu Sheng slowly opened his eyes. Again, he was lying in bed, unable to move. There she was. From the corner of his eyes he saw the white figure at the desk. But unlike the last time, the woman in white was moving her shoulders rapidly and sobbing softly, as though she was in fear. Tack, 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 tack. There were footsteps again. Liu Sheng could feel someone approaching from the corridor. The person was coming through the living room toward his bedroom, and the footsteps were growing clearer as well as more thunderous. Meanwhile, the woman at the desk sobbed even louder, and her shoulders twitched even faster. It was as if she was about to get up and run. The footsteps were now very close. When the door slowly swung open with a click, Liu Sheng's blood ran cold. There was silence for a while. Suddenly, someone lifted the quilt. Liu Sheng's body felt numb. His eyes were wide open and his pupils contracted. Before he knew it, his quilt was tossed away and a figure pounced on him. Ah, Liu Sheng screamed and jolted up from his bed with his head in a muddle. He panted. His body and t-shirt were soaked in sweat. He wanted to say something but could not utter a word. His mind went blank. Liu Sheng sat motionless in bed for 10 minutes. He calmed his breathing until his heartbeat slowed down, no longer thumping like a drum. He then looked around. There was nothing unusual in his bedroom, only the faint glow of the silvery moonlight scattered through the window. Liu Sheng wiped the sweat off his forehead. Even his hands were wet with sweat. Hell, I even dreamt of that thing during a short nap. He slowly leaned against the headboard and took a deep breath. It was the same dream, but this time, it was closer. The dream gave him the heebie-jeebies. Nevertheless, he quickly calmed the rapid thumping of his heartbeat. Fear isn't going to solve anything. I have to keep calm. Liu Sheng knew that since he was little. The more panicked he was, the more likely he would make mistakes, wasting time and energy. It was only by calming down that he could quickly find the solution to a problem. Liu Sheng took a deep breath while he leaned on the bed to calm his pounding heart. About 5 minutes later, his mind was clear and his emotions returned to normal. It gets closer with each dream. At first, the footsteps were only outside the door. Now it has entered the room, and the entity even flipped over my quilt. Liu Sheng's intuition told him that it was some kind of sign. He had the feeling that if he allowed the owner of the footsteps to flip his quilt over and grab him, something unimaginable would happen. He had a hunch that it was a bad omen. I have to think of something should the same dream occur again. Liu Sheng decided. When memories from his past life could even be awakened, anything was possible. Just as Liu Sheng had anticipated on the third day, he experienced the same nightmare again, and this time it happened in the middle of the night. After having supper with his dad, Liu Sheng went back to his bedroom and hit the sack. 10 minutes into his sleep, he dreamt again. The footsteps outside the door were approaching quicker than the last time. However, it seemed as if he was prepared for it. Liu Sheng woke up before the person who made the footsteps opened the door. The encounter this time confirmed his suspicions that it was not a fortuitous phenomenon. The nightmare had to have some hidden meanings that he was unaware of, just like the past life memories that he had awakened for no reason. In the days that followed, the nightmare still arrived on schedule as soon as Liu Sheng fell asleep. He tried to take control of his body in his dream, but it was to no avail. Every time, the same fear struck him. In the dream, the woman in white who sat silently at the table always maintained the same posture. She would twitch and sob in a strange manner, while the footsteps came from the same direction in the corridor. So, Liu Sheng used an alarm clock to wake himself up in advance to avoid accidents. The loud alarm would go off each instant and wake him up just as the footsteps entered through the doorway. It was a precautionary measure that he had put in place, and things went on this way for 2 weeks. My calculations show that since the third dream, the overall length of the dream is about 35 minutes. There are fluctuations in the fourth to the seventh dream, all within the 5-minute range. This shows that the dream isn't long. It was nighttime, and Liu Sheng was sitting in front of the desk lamp, carefully checking the dream data that he had recorded. I should probably just take the average, then I'll have the approximate length of the dream. The length started from the beginning of the dream to when the footsteps entered the room. Liu Sheng obtained the data from his previous 2 dreams. Spinning a pencil in his hand, Liu Sheng's face was calm. Had it not been for the sweat on his forehead, he would not have believed that he had just experienced the same nightmare. What I need to do next is regain control of my body before the footsteps come through the door. Liu Sheng knew himself well. He was not a school bully or a genius. He only had one strength: calmness. So, only by taking advantage of that strength could he win the tug-of-war with the nightmare. Although he had no idea what victory would mean to him, his physical instincts warned him that he could not let the maker of those footsteps catch him. Absolutely not. Liu Sheng began to write, jotting down several points of data in his notebook. Then he closed it, got to his feet, and looked out the window into the distance. The moonlight was gentle, but he felt a chill. Liu Sheng turned around and was about to get into bed but hesitated all of a sudden. Bah, I think it better not sleep. He remained silent for a while before he stood up again, because as soon as he fell asleep, he would face the same nightmare again, and the experience had made him begun to shun the bed. But it was not a solution. Not sleeping would take a toll on his health. Silently, he picked up his wind-up alarm clock, carefully set the time, and fell back in bed with his clothes still on. In the eyes of ordinary people, the bed was a warm and cozy place, but for Liu Sheng, he felt like he was on hot bricks. He still had the nightmare, though with the alarm clock going off 7 times during the night. He finally made it to dawn without incident. What have you been doing lately? Anya Yan looked at Liu Sheng in horror. The calm and healthy friend of hers now looked pale with ugly dark circles. You look as white as a sheet. Young man, you need to learn some self-discipline, Anya Yan said, shooting out her mouth. Liu Sheng yawned helplessly. Despite sitting in the noisy classroom, he was extremely sleepy and about to doze off. The noise around him seemed to be muffled by a thick layer of soundproof fabric. It did not bother him at all. I haven't been sleeping well for the past few days, Liu Sheng said. Did you have a wet dream? Anya Yan got closer with a perverted look on her face. Get lost. It was a nightmare. Liu Sheng sounded dejected. A nightmare managed to turn you into this. Anya Yan was dejected too. The nightmare's been repeating itself, Liu Sheng said in a whisper. There was nothing secretive about it, because many people had the same experience. It was just that their situations were not as bad as his. You've been experiencing the same nightmare, then you should go on Leo and check it out. It's said that some people can control their dreams freely and turn nightmares into sweet dreams. It seems magical, Anya Yan said after some thought. Really, Liu Sheng had checked, but he could not verify its authenticity. Really. I've had nightmares before. You shouldn't read horror stories before you go to bed, and you mustn't have fear in your heart. Otherwise you'll surely have nightmares, Anya Yan said. Is that so? Liu Sheng nodded. He had also checked those claims, but he could not verify them. You'd better believe it. I used to have nightmares, but after I discovered this method, I never had a nightmare again. You dream what you scheme, Anya Yan said. Really, Liu Sheng bloked and said nothing more. You look so dead. Do you want me to take you to the gymnasium? Afterward, Anya Yan became perverted again. Forget it. Tsk tsk. Now not even the gymnastic suits and long silky legs can evoke your interest. Anya Yan sighed. I just want to have some good sleep now. Liu Sheng felt helpless. Liu Sheng got home after school in the afternoon and was surprised to see his parents at home. His mom, Mrs. Wang Qiu, was cooking in the kitchen, and his dad, Liu Zhonian, was sitting in the living room reading the paper. His elder sister, Liu Xiao, was not there as she had returned to college. Seeing Liu Sheng arrive home, his dad put down the paper and looked at him worriedly. Why have you been looking so pale lately? Are you sick, son? Never underestimate the slightest illness. Some illnesses can kill. I'm fine, Dad. Liu Sheng changed into his slippers. It's just that I haven't gotten enough sleep recently. You'd better be. Son. Before his dad could finish, Liu Sheng dropped his bag and entered his room. The door was slammed shut with a bang, then there was silence. This kid, Liu Zhonian, looked at his wife, who had come out to see what was happening. The two of them looked at each other with worried expressions on their faces. Dad's still ill. We mustn't let anything happen to our two children, Mrs. Wang Qiu said. I'll keep an eye on them, don't worry. Now go and make dinner. Liu Zhonian waved at her. While lying in bed on a moonlit night, Liu Sheng's body was immobilized and his limbs were frozen. The only parts of his body that he could barely move were his fingers and brain. That was also partially due to his hard work for the past few days. Tack, tack, tack. The footsteps came again. Liu Sheng was calm as he tried to clear his mind. After experiencing the same nightmare so many times, he knew he could not go on like that anymore because 2 weeks without sleep had taken a toll on his health and life. Liu Sheng. Suddenly, Liu Sheng heard a voice kaliog him, and his expression froze. Liu Sheng. The voice seemed to be floating from a distant void, and it sounded sorrowful. But Liu Sheng was only in a bedroom of less than 6 square meters. Liu Sheng. The voice rang out again. Liu Sheng gritted his teeth, trying to stabilize his accelerating heartbeat. After his previous experiences, he had noticed a pattern. Whenever he was in a panic, the footsteps would pick up the pace and get closer, making him lose control of his body. Don't be afraid, Liu Sheng told himself. He turned and looked at the woman in white who was sitting in front of the desk on his left. Then he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He opened his eyes again and saw a woman with a pale complexion right in front of his face, almost touching his nose. They were less than a palm apart from each other. The woman's eyes were wide open as if she had seen something terrifying. Suddenly, a light flashed across his eyes. When Liu Sheng could see again, the woman's face was gone, and the woman in white was still sitting motionless at the desk with her back facing him. He trembled, trying to control his body. Tack, tack, tack. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. Liu Sheng. The call was also getting closer and closer, and the bedroom door slowly opened with a click. Liu Sheng struggled to rein in his body and emotions. Tack, tack, tack. The footsteps were closing the gap between them, slowly entering his bedroom and stopping at the tail end of his bed. Liu Sheng could clearly feel that someone was staring at him with a mysterious smile. It was cold and lifeless. Somehow he suddenly sensed a pair of hands slowly reaching for his quilt. Liu Sheng. A sudden scream rang in Liu Sheng's ears, and his entire body felt numb. Let's perish together. Liu Sheng had no time to think. The color drained from his face, and with all his might, he flung his quilt away, got up, and reached out to catch the person at the tail end of his bed. Ah! There was a shrill cry. Liu Sheng felt the world spin around him, and he could not see anything. He seemed to have hit something, yet caught nothing. Huffing slowly, Liu Sheng regained his vision after some time, but had no idea how much time had passed. He only found himself out of bed and standing at the desk with his right hand firmly on the woman in white's right shoulder. In a split second, the woman in white, whose back was facing him, shriveled instantly like a leaky balloon and disappeared. Only her white dress was left on the chair. Liu Sheng was rooted to the spot. He looked down, trying to examine the dress, which quickly melted like white wax and disappeared altogether in a matter of seconds. "I've succeeded," Liu Sheng felt a sense of relief. Gasping and looking around, he found himself still in his bedroom. But there was something amiss. Except for the desk, bed, floor, ceiling, and chandelier, the other details in his room were blurry. Liu Sheng reached out to touch the chair, but he could not feel it, as though he was wearing thick gloves. Am I still in the dream? Liu Sheng suddenly came to his senses. He had studied the way to determine whether one was still in a dream, and one of the methods was to look at the surrounding details. Thinking for a moment, Liu Sheng bent over and carefully examined the texture of the wooden chair. The curved texture and pattern on the black wooden chair did not look like wood grain at all, but more like the painting of some strange animal. Liu Sheng found it familiar, but could not identify its name. It appears that I really am in a dream. Liu Sheng was excited and was no longer in fear. He could still move about freely. The bedroom, bookcase, bed, desk, and wooden chair were the same as they were in reality, except the details of some corners were fuzzy like a mosaic. Calming himself down, Liu Sheng slowly shifted his eyes to the tail end of the bed, where the person who made the footsteps stood earlier but had now left. Liu Sheng looked through the open door and noticed that the narrow corridor was bathed in a dim red glow. He paused before he slowly moved to open the door. Stepping out into the corridor felt like walking on cotton. He could not feel the floor. Liu Sheng was aware that he was in the hallway of his home, but there was the illusion of walking on a soft and fluffy carpet. Through the glass window on the left side of the corridor, Liu Sheng saw something dark red flowing slowly and quietly, like thick liquid outside. He went on to touch it but felt nothing. It must be the special nature of dreams. I still remember the lack of the sense of touch in my previous dreams. The thought crossed Liu Sheng's mind, but he did not stop. Instead, he retracted his hand and continued to walk down the corridor. His home in the dream was the same as it was in reality. The design and layout were all the same. The corridor was only a dozen meters long, and at the end of it, the kitchen was on the left, while the living room was on the right. When Liu Sheng got in between the kitchen and the living room, he peeked around. Where should I go? A blanket of fog seemed to be clouding his consciousness in the dream. He had a feeling that he needed to focus his mind on remaining in the dream. Otherwise, he would wake up immediately. After hesitating for a few seconds, Liu Sheng went left, where the kitchen was. He wanted to check if the food he had eaten and the dishes during the day were still there. His family members would usually leave the leftovers on the table and cover them with a fly-proof food cover. He gently pushed the door open and was startled. The sink, dining table, and chopping board were all in their respective positions. The white tiles on the wall, the black and white lattice tiles on the floor, and the freshly bought vegetables in the corner of the kitchen were all there. A few red carrots were strewn around the grocery bag, a head of cabbage still had dew on its leaves, and there were 2 tomatoes as round and big as apples. Those tomatoes were supposedly a new variety that was more nutritious. Things are the same as they are in reality, but what is this? Liu Sheng cautiously maneuvered past the groceries. His eyes landed on a crack in the wall on the right side of the kitchen. The crack, which looked like a passageway, should not have existed there. It was over 1 meter in height and half a meter in width, with black mist rolling within. Liu Sheng stood motionless in front of the passage and saw that the kitchen was occasionally distorted like a shifting phantom. He had no idea how long he had been standing there, probably 10 or 20 seconds. He had no perception of time in his dreams. This crack must have something to do with my previous nightmare, Liu Sheng speculated. The air here is the same as the air in my nightmare before this. I can definitely feel it. As Liu Sheng slowly inched closer to the passage, he could already feel a chill and stiffness spreading across the part of his skin that faced the fissure. It felt just like the previous nightmare. I have to go in and check it out. Liu Sheng paused before he made up his mind. Since it was just a dream, he knew that he would not die for real. Hence, curiosity finally took over his fear. He calmed down for a while, then slowly stepped into the crack. Liu Sheng felt as though he had jumped into a pool of icy water the moment he poked his head in. It was pitch dark, and he heard the whining of the wind. Not even 3 seconds in the crack, a light suddenly flashed before Liu Sheng's eyes, and the chill in his body slowly subsided. It was still cold but more bearable. When his eyes finally adapted, a European-style living room comprised of grayish-black stones appeared before him. He found himself standing directly on one end of the rectangular living room. On his left were a fireplace and an old brownish-red stove with the bust of a solemn, curly-haired man. Liu Sheng could not help but reach for the sculpture, which felt solid, cold, and smooth to the touch. He was stunned and quickly pulled back his fingers. The Filiog is much, much stronger this time, just like the real thing. With that in mind, Liu Sheng quickly looked back over his shoulder. The crack in the wall, from which he had passed through, was now shrinking and disappearing rapidly. There was still a faint light leaking through the cracks from the kitchen. Before Liu Sheng knew what was happening, the crack suddenly decreased in size at an even faster rate and was completely gone in the block of an eye. Seeing what was happening, Liu Sheng was rooted to the spot. He knew that he was in a dream, but he looked down and noticed that a dark, gaseous substance in his surroundings had begun to permeate his skin and seep into his body. It was as if the place was accepting and infecting him. There was an unexplainable sense of security, which made him feel that he could stay a little longer. Snapping out of his thoughts, Liu Sheng started to look around the place. There was a large dining table covered with an eye-catching white cloth that had turned grayish, old, and tattered with dark red stains at the center of the hall. The floor, which was black with yellow patterns, was made of unknown cold, hard stones. Overhead, a black petal-shaped candle holder hung from the yellow ciliog, and on it were 16 unlit white candles of different lengths also arranged in a petal pattern. There was a large rectangular window on one side of the hall, while various oil paintings were on the opposite pale yellow wall. Liu Sheng paused for a while before he headed toward the big window first. At the window, he slowly drew the grayish-black curtains aside and looked out. Through the square window pane, the scene outside was gray and gloomy, with a few shadows of bare trees swaying in the wind. Other than that, there was nothing but darkness beyond the wall. Liu Sheng closed the curtains. He quietly turned to walk toward the other wall where there were many oil paintings, but all Liu Sheng saw were fuzzy images. He could barely distinguish portrait from landscape paintings. It's not much different from the previous dream. All details appear blurry. Liu Sheng was calm as the sense of familiarity in the dream made him less nervous. He reached out to touch the oil paintings. Like before, he could not feel them as if his hand was wrapped in thick cotton cloth. Liu Sheng was very patient, though. He examined each and every oil painting. Only then did he step back and look in the direction of the exit. There was a wooden door in the corner of the hall, and it opened to other rooms. Liu Sheng continued to walk, increasing his pace. Once he was at the wooden door, he put his hand on the doorknob, which was in the shape of a horse head, and gently turned it. As the door softly creaked open, he slowly stepped into the adjacent room. A dark curtain with printed patterns hung from above the doorway. Liu Sheng drew the curtain to both sides and finally saw the interior. He was greeted by 2 dark red bookshelves that faced the door, and they were filled with neatly arranged books. It's a study room, Liu Sheng inferred. He paused, stopping short of going in farther. His past experience told him that the text in the books would be illegible. Thus, he thought that he had better explore other places. Liu Sheng turned and went back to the hall, where he wandered around and quickly found another door. He stepped through it and came upon a bedroom. He hung around for a while and went back out when he found nothing. In the corner of the hall, he soon discovered a basement under the floor where a massive amount of wine bottles and a large dark red wine barrel were stored. The cellar was filled with the fragrance of wine. Liu Sheng mooched around in the basement and began to figure out what kind of place it was. This is an old European manor. Liu Sheng resurfaced to the hall when he felt that he was about to wake up. People in dreams could always tell when they were about to wake up. I better make use of this last moment to check out the study room. He wasted no time and ran straight toward the study room. Once in the room, Liu Sheng first saw a low mahogany table at the center and a stack of gray-covered books on it. Next to the pile of books was a silvery gray candlestick, and next to that was an opened book. He curiously went up to check it out. The texts in the books were written in a small font, but they were clear enough. In spite of that, he had no idea what the words meant. Why is it that the writings are so clear, Liu Sheng wondered. He ignored the books and set his eyes on the other bookshelves, which were filled with various books. Picking up a book and opening it, Liu Sheng saw that it was also written in the same kind of language in a small font. This doesn't look like Zilio, but more like ancient Ren. Liu Sheng frowned. He remembered seeing ancient books with such writing on TV. Ancient Ren, hieroglyphics, cuneiform, and ancient Shiguang were the 4 oldest writing systems. Liu Sheng had read about the origin of these writing systems in the many extracurricular books in his junior high school. Among the 4 ancient writing systems, hieroglyphics and ancient Ren were the most readily identifiable and distinct. That was why he recognized it immediately. This is funny. Now I'm even dreaming of ancient Ren, Liu Sheng said to himself as he carefully browsed through the book in his hand. What was even more surprising was that he found a new sense of unfamiliarity in the book's content, graphics, and text. Supposedly, what I see in dreams, however strange they are, should be familiar. But this unfamiliarity, Liu Sheng felt that something was wrong. Just as he decided to copy a paragraph of the text and study it after he woke up, sudden vertigo struck him. It's time. He knew it. The nascent ray of the morning sun came through the window and landed on the desk, creating a pale yellow reflection. Liu Sheng was lying silently on his bed with open eyes and a calm expression. There was only a hint of regret in his pupils. No way. Liu Sheng jumped up abruptly, throwing the quilt aside to get out of bed. He approached the desk and pulled the drawer open, taking out a pen. A moment of rustlog later, he had written down a row of text on a white sheet of paper. It was a Liu of ancient Ren text. Liu Sheng scrutinized the text, which he had written down from his memory of his dream. The black Ren text looked like a row of shredded metal, sharp and disorganized, yet neatly arranged in a Liu. It looked like debris, which was the most typical feature of ancient Ren writing. That was also the reason why Liu Sheng could point out its characteristics instantly. Interesting. Liu Sheng smacked. He was in a profession that required a sharp perception of texts in his past life. Right now, the unknown language had reignited his long-lost passion. I can't believe I've managed to copy the Ren text from my dream. And it looks authentic. Liu Sheng scratched his chin as old habits died hard. He wanted to translate it. This Ren text. Translating it is not difficult. I can check the words one by one on Liu. Others may not be able to do it, but I've been studying ancient languages for 6 years. It's really not a challenge. Liu Sheng was focused. He folded the paper carefully and kept it secure. This is the first time I've come across this language. I never thought it would appear in a dream. I just hope that the translated text won't be a bunch of garbled characters. He was curious about what the Ren text meant. Liu Sheng securely tucked the paper away, then got to his feet and put on his clothes. His daily routine started all over again. After breakfast, he changed into his school uniform and hit the road with his school bag on his back. He soon hopped on the bus that carried him to school. At school, the day went by uneventfully. There was a short break in between lessons, and after lunch there were more classes. It was business as usual after school in the afternoon. Liu Sheng concentrated on revisions to prepare for the next weekly test. He would only study the Rain text, dismantle each word, and look it up on Liu during his free time. There's a mobile book fair. Do you want to go and have a look? I heard it's a big one with many booksellers. The class was just over when Anya Yan turned and whispered to him. Mobile book fair. Liu Sheng began to recall what it was. It consisted of a group of booksellers who bought and sold old books. They were basically Selyog second-hand books. Before the internet became prevalent, book hunting was one of the few popular student hobbies. Let's go together. Maybe you can find something interesting, Anya Yan invited him. It appeared that she was the most eager to go. I'm not going. I'm penniless, Liu Sheng said. Don't you have several hundred yuan? I saw the money yesterday. You have it in your pocket. Anya Yan smiled slyly. I have to live on that money for quite some time. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Are you sure you don't want to go? Maybe you'll find some good stuff for a bargain. Anya Yan made a face at Liu Sheng. Her smile was ambivalent. Liu Sheng was impassive. I really have no money. It's just a few yuan a copy and we can share it equally. Anya Yan got closer and said in a low voice. Liu Sheng understood what she was talking about. The so-called a few yuan a copy referred to the most popular publications, the adult magazines. The magazines, which had photos of handsome men and pretty women on the cover, were stuffed with erotic content. A copy of such a magazine was usually sold at Y4, which was the standard price. But the content varied from magazine to magazine. Anya Yan was a girl, but she liked to buy them in secret. What do you think? These magazines will be our common property, and we'll take turns reading them. After that, we can rent them out for 50 cents a day, Anya Yan said. I'm not interested. Liu Sheng remained silent for a while before he managed those words. Anya Yan looked at him and smiled. Well, meet at the school gate later. Anya Yan turned around and packed up her things. She never regarded herself as a girl. Her relationship with Liu Sheng was like that of buddies. She was tomboyish, and she got along well with boys. As a result, it gave the impression that she was just like an ordinary boy. Had it not been for her growing breasts and butt, which always reminded others that she was a girl, Liu Sheng would have treated her as a boy. After all, why on earth would a girl bring a boy to buy adult magazines? Liu Sheng was speechless. Anya Yan would be treated like a creep, even in the society of his past life, let alone the present one. Liu Sheng wanted to decline her invitation since he was trying to focus all his energy into the texts that he had memorized from his dream. Curiosity was driving him to translate the book as soon as possible. Why not? The second-hand bookstalls used to sell pirated copies of the Ren language dictionary. That would be a bargain and should be good enough for my purpose. With that thought in mind, Liu Sheng's interest grew. While he quickly packed his things, 2 students from another class came over to borrow study notes from Anya Yan. So, Anya Yan asked Liu Sheng to wait for her at the school gate. Liu Sheng carried his bag and stood at the school gate as groups of students in blue and white school uniforms left their classes and walked out of the school. The golden ray of the sunset dyed the students a shade of pale red. There were also loud shouts coming from the school field nearby, where students were playing soccer. Some students rang the bell of their bicycles as they rode past him. He stood on one side of the iron gate and took a deep breath. The mild weather gave him the feeling that oxygen had displaced all of the carbon dioxide in his lungs. Let's go. Anya Yan suddenly appeared out of nowhere and patted him on the shoulder. The girl had tied her hair into a ponytail, and it dangled freely from the back of her head. She peeked over her left and right side with a wicked smile. I brought a dark-colored bag today. We can buy more when we get there, Anya Yan said. Liu Sheng wanted to tell her that he was not interested and would rather go home to translate the text, but he did not want to pour cold water on Anya Yan's enthusiasm. Therefore, he paused, stopping short of speaking his mind. I wanted to bring Ali along, but she has thin skin, Anya Yan said. It was not so much that Ali had thin skin. She was actually too embarrassed to tag along because there was a boy following them. Liu Sheng also knew Ali. She was Anya Yan's bestie and her only close friend in the class. However, Ali was not that close to Liu Sheng. While they were on their way, the two did not talk much. They walked along the roadside and passed 2 street corners to arrive at an alley in the old section of the town. The lane, packed with bookstalls, was only 200 meters away from their school. At dusk, there were more than a dozen bookstalls in the alley. Some vendors laid their books on a rag above a plastic sheet on the ground, while some had mobile carts selling pirated books, cassette tapes, CDs, and so on. They sold mini radios too. The sky had not turned completely dark, but there were already patrons, like Liu Sheng and Sheng Yan, hanging around in the alley. There were not many people yet. Nonetheless, the atmosphere was pretty lively. People just liked to spend time there, and they never thought of leaving. Some even squatted and read books in front of the bookstalls. There was only a single light source, which was a high-powered light bulb without a lampshade, above the alley. The light bulb appeared to have 100 watts of output as it illuminated the entire place. Anya Yan enthusiastically maneuvered past the small crowd and came before the first bookstand. She was a veteran. Knowing that bookstalls usually did not display the adult magazines in prominent places, she immediately locked on to the hidden spots where the vendors kept their adult materials. Liu Sheng left her alone and went to search for dictionaries. While he was still at the first bookstall, Anya Yan had already moved on to the third. Despite that, Liu Sheng was not in a hurry. He searched carefully, and when he did not find the Ren dictionary he wanted, he moved on to the next stall. Liu Sheng vaguely remembered that the stalls there had it. The translation dictionaries may have been pirated copies, but they would save him a lot of money. So he went to stall after stall and soon reached the fourth one. In a pile of books on the floor, Liu Sheng found what he wanted: a Ren dictionary. "How much is this?" Liu Sheng squatted down and pulled out the dictionary from the pile of old books. 15. No bargaining. It seemed that the stall owner with square glasses and a gray fabric mask did not want people to see his face. "The texts are blurry." "I'll buy it for Y5, Liu Sheng counter-offered. "You can't get it for Y5. At least Y10, kid. You seem to be a regular here. You should know the price," the stall owner said. 10. Liu Sheng shook his head and got to his feet, pretending to leave. All right, 5 then, take it." The stall owner accepted the counteroffer. "Here you go." Liu Sheng quickly took out the small bills from his pocket and paid the stall owner Y5. Picking up the dictionary, he checked it thoroughly. The printing was clear. It was an excellent reproduction and was as thick as a brick. A pirated book like that usually fetched around Y20. After all, genuine ones were sold at about Y40. He got it for so cheap only because it was not popular. Not many people looked for Ren dictionaries. It was also the only Ren dictionary in the stall. Plus, the crux of the matter was, the pages were about to fall apart since the binding was about to give way. "It doesn't matter, as long as it's usable," Liu Sheng said to himself. He could not wait to go home to begin translating the text. The Y5 he spent was way more than his daily budget. He would have to be extra frugal from then on. After spending his money on a piece of scrap like that, he was having a headache. But if he could restore it, who knows, it might even appreciate in value. Soon, Anya Yan came up to Liu Sheng with a bagload of books in her hands. "How's it going?" she asked. "I've bought a dictionary." Liu Sheng waved the dictionary in his hand. Its red cover and white spine were in stark contrast to the adult materials in Anya Yan's bag. "This is—" Anya Yan stared at Liu Sheng with a distorted face, as if she was meeting him for the first time. "If there's nothing else, let's go home," Liu Sheng said. "Nice guys," Anya Yan's mouth twitched. However, she knew Liu Sheng well. He had always been that way. It was one of the reasons why she liked to bring Liu Sheng along as her cover. "Look, I bought 3 at Y4 each, totally og to Y12. Let's divide the cost equally." "All you need to pay me is Y6, Anya Yan said in a whisper. "I have no money," Liu Sheng said. He used to buy and rent these adult materials out for a little money. After all, most students in the school were not willing to spend money on such things because they were nice to read but difficult to hide. Hence, people rented them for a few cents. They did not have to worry about where to hide the magazines, and it cost much less. Also, when there was not much to see, and they got bored with the magazine, they could rent a different one. Another reason why Anya Yan brought Liu Sheng along was that she was a girl. She needed Liu Sheng to be her frontman in the book renting business. If you're not paying, the renting part, Anya Yan was in a pickle. "You can rent it to girls," Liu Sheng said. Boys are more willing to part with their money for this. Liu Sheng had always been her cooperative business partner until now when he suddenly changed. So, Anya Yan was upset. "You can resell them. I've been having some other stuff recently, and I don't have time for this." Liu Sheng did not want to continue the book renting business. It would have still been acceptable to him had it been regular books, but adult magazines were too low class. "Are you sure you don't want to continue? It could earn you a few bucks a day," Anya Yan said. "I don't want to carry on." Liu Sheng shook his head. "You're a girl. It doesn't look good on you. Just stop doing it for now. Aren't we partners?" Anya Yan felt helpless. "I can help you get Daniel Dayu's help," Liu Sheng said. Daniel Dayu was a student from another class, who also ran a book renting business that included adult materials. He would be happy to take in the magazines on a consignment basis. After all, he had nothing to lose. And it also saved him the hassle of sourcing for books. Fine. Anya Yan was still reluctant. Liu Sheng looked at her and knew that she was not happy. But he could do nothing because she would not listen to him. Even though they were best friends, he had said everything he needed to say. The ball was now in her court. The two parted ways at the alley and went home separately. Once he arrived home, Liu Sheng saw the note that his parents left him, saying that they had gone to the hospital to take care of Grandpa. They left 2 dishes of food, a plate of scrambled eggs with cucumber and a plate of red pepper shredded pork, which had turned cold on the kitchlo table. Liu Sheng reheated the rice and quickly ate it with the cold dishes. Then he rushed into his bedroom with the dictionary to begin studying the text that he had memorized from his dream. His bedroom was both a sleeping place and a study room. It was nightfall, and Liu Sheng turned on the desk lamp to continue working on the Ren text, word by word, under the yellowish light. About half an hour later, referring to the basic grammar rules found in the dictionary, Liu Sheng had quickly translated the 2 phrases on the cover of the book. It really is standard Ren text. I've never seen this language before. Other than a little exaggeration in style, the 2 phrases are actually correct. Liu Sheng stared at the 2 phrases in front of him and was momentarily at a loss for words. So, the meaning of these 2 phrases should be, Liu Sheng slowly wrote down the translated words, one at a time. Sharp object, long sword, method, note, handbook. When reading them together in a sentence, it means the handbook of swordsmanship. Liu Sheng's eyes were wide open when he finally figured it out. He had translated the Ren text word by word, and the basic grammar of the language was not complicated. Oftentimes, a letter may contain several meanings, but when the different letters were connected together, the result made Liu Sheng's jaw drop. Under the desk light, Liu Sheng was immersed in studying the text that he had just translated. He repeatedly checked the words using the dictionary to see if he had made any mistakes, and after 3 rounds of verification, Liu Sheng was pretty sure that his translation was correct. If it's really a handbook of swordsmanship, then the book I saw in the dream. Liu Sheng was in disbelief as he remembered that nothing was repetitive despite the vast amount of text in the book. If those writings were authentic? A strong sense of curiosity rose within him. How could it be? It was just a dream. Liu Sheng smacked and lowered his head to continue translating the last Liu of the text that he had memorized and written down. The first Liu was on the front cover, and the last Liu was on the lower right corner of the back cover. He was initially not sure what they were about. However, with the help of the dictionary, he quickly finished translating the remaining words. Fortunately, the Ren writing system was not difficult to learn, and there were many experts of the language in the country. Liu Sheng was glad that he had bought the dictionary. After he was done with the translation, he picked up the note, waved it a little, and put it back down on the table. His expression changed. What is this? Liu Sheng looked perplexed. By now he was dead sure that his dreams had gone wrong. The black text on the white paper clearly read, Class 2 Swordsman, Ravel's Handbook. Class 2 Swordsman. Liu Sheng had found something life-changing. He remained silent for a while before he scrunched up the paper and went to open the door. The living room was dark. His parents were not home yet. He took a deep breath, walked quickly into the kitchen, and wet the crumpled paper under the faucet. Liu Sheng watched as the writings on the crumpled paper blurred and faded quickly under the running water. When the writings finally turned into faint patches of black ink, he tossed the wet paper into the trash can, dried his hands, and left the kitchlow to return to his bedroom. Without cleaning himself up, Liu Sheng took off his clothes and socks, then got into bed. He could not wait to re-enter the dream from the day before, so that he could obtain a little more content and see if the book was truly readable. He wondered if he could still access his previous nightmare. I hope I can still dream about it. Liu Sheng was looking forward to it. Without the feeling of fear this time, he closed his eyes. He regulated his breathing and emptied his mind. Time then ticked away. Liu Sheng's consciousness gradually blurred. In a trance, he seemed to hear the sound of the security door unlocking in the living room and someone walking in. The person did not utter a word, and there was no other sound. Soon, footsteps were heard coming from the corridor, and his bedroom door was pushed open. Liu Sheng could clearly feel that someone was standing at the doorway, peering at him. Is that Dad or Mom? Liu Sheng speculated. But he did not even know when the person left, because he quickly fell into a deep sleep. Liu Sheng stood quietly in the gloomy Manners Hall next to the fireplace with a bust. In front of the fireplace was a rectangular dining table covered with a tattered tablecloth. He slowly opened his eyes and looked around. Am I really back? Liu Sheng found it incredible. He thought that he would experience his previous nightmare again, and he was prepared to confront it. But to his surprise, he had come to this place instead. Where is this place? Liu Sheng searched his memories, but did not find anything reminiscent of the manor. The scenes in dreams are supposedly places that I've seen before. Most of the time, it would be familiar scenery, people, and things. but I have no idea what this place is." Liu Sheng knitted his brows together, looking down at the long gray underwear that he had worn to bed. "Even the loose thread isn't here." Liu Sheng raised his right hand, where there used to be a loose thread hanging from his sleeve near the elbow. Pausing for a moment, he then walked straight toward the study room. He had checked the other places in the manor, and now the study room, specifically the opened book on the table, was the only thing that interested him. Liu Sheng twisted the doorknob and re-entered the study room, which he had previously left. The room layout was still the same as before. There were 2 mahogany bookshelves filled with books, a stack of books on a low wooden table, a candlestick, and a large open book. Liu Sheng walked up to the low table. Sitting down, he carefully looked at the content of the book. The dense text and graphics were clear. So realistic it doesn't feel like I'm in a dream. Liu Sheng was amazed. He reached out to grab the corner of the wooden table to make sure that he was not dreaming. The tactile sensation was still the same as before. He could not feel anything, as if his hand was wrapped in a thick cotton cloth. But what surprised him was the perception of touch this time. It was much more refined than the one in his previous dreams. Liu Sheng retracted his hand and refocused his attention on the book in front of him. The sheer amount of rain text gave him a headache. With my level of memory power, I can only memorize a little at a time. How long will it take to finish reading a page? Thinking of that, Liu Sheng felt depressed. However, he had no choice but to translate it bit by bit. Perhaps he would get more proficient over time. It looks like I'll have to return to my old trade. Liu Sheng used to work as an ancient text translator in his past life. Fortunately, the Ren writings in this world were akin to Old English on Earth. It was relatively obscure, but not hard to make out the rough meaning since Liu Sheng was quite an expert at it. I'll just treat this like learning another foreign language. If this book's really legible, Liu Sheng was full of anticipation and curiosity. He was keen to know what this book in his dream was about. Was it just as the book cover suggested, and was about ancient swordsmanship? If this book was comprehensible, would it mean that he could also translate and read the other books on the shelves? Liu Sheng was on tenterhooks, but quickly made up his mind to memorize the content on the first page of the same book for the first time. It was the same book from which he deciphered the text on the cover. Time was ticking away. Liu Sheng repeatedly recited a small passage from the first page with the aid of a light, which seemed to have come from nowhere. Memorizing a paragraph of ancient text without knowing the meaning was tough. Nonetheless, Liu Sheng had been in the trade before, so he used his own way to memorize the entire paragraph on the first page. The translation was painstakingly slow. Liu Sheng's lack of grammatical knowledge on the Rain language meant that he could only translate it one word at a time, just as the search engines did. The problem was particularly apparent when it came to slang words. After he experienced the dream for the second time and memorized the book, Liu Sheng could now go to the manor every night. Each time he got in, he would write down a sentence or two and translate them into Shileo, which was his everyday language. This went on for 4 days. With the aid of the studies and experiences from his past life, Liu Sheng's translation became better. As the Rain text was not a niche language, there were many related grammar books available for download on the internet. By referring to those materials during the translation process, Liu Sheng was able to verify the results repeatedly, and soon he finished the first page of the book. My memory is what's holding me back. Liu Sheng sat silently in one corner of the sofa, recalliog what he had translated the day before. It was a Sunday. His uncle and cousin, Liu Zhenyu, had come for a visit. Liu Zhenyu, who was 19 this year and a year older than Liu Sheng, possessed a gentle disposition. He wore a pair of square glasses, sitting silently beside his father and reading a foreign language book with his head down. Liu Tao, Liu Sheng's uncle, held a cup of tea in his hands, with his brows knitted together as he discussed the condition of their grandfather with Liu Sheng's dad. Liu Tao opined that Grandpa was old and ill now. It was time to write a will, but he wanted to know what everyone thought. There was a more urgent problem, though, and it was about the purchase of a grave plot for Grandpa. Liu Tao was concerned about who should bear the cost of the purchase and whether they should evenly share the cost. After all, some of them were on the breadlio and could barely contribute much. Grandpa was still alive, yet all Liu Tao cared about was his share of the estate. Meanwhile, Liu Sheng's dad, Liu Zhonian, who rarely talked, listened on with a grim expression. Liu Sheng did not like his uncle and his family. His cousins, Liu Zhenyu and Liu Xiaoxiao, who lived in Clover, loved to frequent the bars and KTV. They also occasionally backpacked together in search of life experiences. Naturally, their social circles and activities were a class higher than that of Liu Sheng's. In contrast, all Liu Sheng could afford to do was mostly visit the arcades and internet cafes. So Liu Sheng and Liu Zhenyu may have been of similar age, but they shared no common interests. Liu Zhenyu's eyes occasionally swept past him, and it felt as if Liu Sheng did not exist. This cousin of his was a top student who had landed a top 10 spot in the last weekly exam in his school. Huaixia First High School, which Liu Zhengyu attended, was one of the top schools in town. It was of a different league compared with Huiyan High School, where Liu Sheng studied. Liu Sheng could not care less about Liu Zhenyu and vice versa. Liu Sheng had his full attention on the books in his dream. The translated text was still flashing across his mind's eye. For a long time, I, Ravel, a Class 2 swordsman of the Empire, have wanted to record a biography on myself. I have fought on the battlefield of Sharn and defeated 7 elite enemy soldiers. I am not extraordinary, but I deserve my reputation as a Class 2 swordsman. Now I am old and returning to my hometown. In this desperate time, I want to leave my legacy. I can still see fire and hear explosions at the outpost. Shells pierce the air and glittering cold weapons clash in conflict, while my comrades and I ruffle against each other's armor. Some people fall and some get back up. There is a loud bang coming from the shield tower at the front, and smoke is rising like a stone column into the air. I am not afraid of death, but I do not want to die for nothing. That was it. That was the only part Liu Sheng had translated after he went through the trouble of buying a dictionary and scouring the internet for grammar materials. He just pieced the words together and discovered their meaning. An actual soldier left this book behind, Liu Sheng inferred. After days of hard work, Liu Sheng finally grasped some of the ancient Ren language's basic vocabulary. He spent all day and night on the translation, eating, sleeping, and breathing the Ren text whenever he was free. He swore that he had never been so crazily enthusiastic about learning. The books in his dream were like deadly poppies with a tempting aroma and appeal. He was eager to know what the Class 2 swordsman represented and whether he could learn the art of sword fighting from the Handbook of Swordsmanship. The graphics I saw before could be an illustration of how to learn swordsmanship, Liu Sheng thought. Liu Sheng, Liu Sheng. Suddenly, a call jolted him out of his thoughts. Liu Sheng noticed a frowning Liu Zhenyu, who had been Kalyog him several times. "What's up?" Liu Sheng quickly replied. "What revision materials do you need?" "I've got a lot, and you can make a copy of them," Liu Zhenyu said. Liu Sheng was stunned and turned to look at his dad. Apparently, Liu Zhenyu did not make the offer on his own accord, but at his dad, Liu Zhonyan's request. As his son was about to take the college entrance exam, Liu Zhonyan was worried because Liu Sheng's academic performance had always been mediocre. So he figured that his son could learn something from Liu Zhenyu. However, Liu Sheng was not interested. He had the memories of his past life and was far more mature than the average student. When it came to academics, he was so-so, but it was only because he did not want to learn. Not only was Liu Sheng not interested, but he also did not agree with the exam-oriented education system there. He thought that it was merely a waste of time. Barely scraping by in his studies only to pacify his parents, Liu Sheng was not willing to invest more effort and time in competing for marks with other students because he already had enough of those things in his past life. Revision materials. "Thanks, but no thanks, Brother Zhenyu. I have enough here," Liu Sheng replied. "Fine." Liu Zhenyu could not have cared less. "Next week is Xiaoxiao's birthday. We're going out to have some fun. Do you want to join us? I can't go. I'm strapped for time." Liu Sheng could not be bothered as he was too engrossed in his dreams. You should expand your social circle, plan for your future, and think about where you want to go. Liu Zhenyu always held a sense of superiority, but pretended to be modest. Spend less time on video games and magazines. We should be responsible for our future. Liu Zhenyu's father felt proud of his son, while Liu Zhonyan stayed silent. Liu Sheng was tired of all the bullshit. He had no intention of arguing with Liu Zhenyu, but his cousin seemed to enjoy flaunting his superiority. "I know what I'm doing and what I want to do. Brother Zhenyu, You should worry about yourself. I heard from my classmates that you brought a girl to the People's Hospital. Is it true? Liu Zhenyu was stunned, and his face froze. He thought that he had kept the secret well. Not only had Liu Sheng learned about it, but he had now revealed it in front of his father too. Stop spewing nonsense, Liu Zhenyu panicked. After all, he was just 19 years old. There was a lack of subtlety, and when those words came out, his father, as well as Liu Junian, immediately wised up. Liu Sheng shook his head silently. As the two elders began to question Liu Zhenyu, he revealed everything he knew, including the appearance of the girl. Truth be told, Liu Sheng did not hear about it from his classmates. He saw it with his own eyes at the hospital. Leaving Liu Zhenyu alone, Liu Sheng got to his feet and exited the living room to quickly clean himself up. He wasted no time since he knew that studying for the college entrance exam and researching the ancient Ren text would be time-consuming. Nothing could fascinate Liu Sheng more than the ancient Ren text. Time flew. A month had passed since then. Liu Sheng, incessant in his study of the ancient Ren text, finally managed to translate a few crucial pages of the book. He chose pages with graphics to save time, but it was not done randomly. The pages were carefully selected based on the marks below the graphic illustrations. Each illustration depicted a person holding a long sword, all in different poses, and the Lios of text were mostly annotations. Liu Sheng discovered that the pages with graphics were explanatory, while the rest of the pages just contained stories. That was also the reason why he focused on translating the pages with graphic illustrations. Liu Sheng flipped through the pages of his notes, which he had written in Chinese characters. His brows were knitted together as he sat at his desk, immersing himself in the translated content. I've done 5 pages, all with graphics. There aren't many words, and the translation process is much faster. I've been using the Chinese characters that I've learned from my past life for the notes because it's a safer method to prevent any secrets from being leaked. But this content, Liu Sheng was hesitant. The translated graphics were apparently illustrations of swordsmanship. Looking at the simple graphics that he had copied, Liu Sheng knew that the pattern and style, as well as the accompanying text, described vital points and killer moves. They were obviously not for show, but skills for actual combat. Is swordsmanship from a book in a dream real? If it isn't, it would be too dangerous to learn it. In the first illustration, a man was holding a sword and thrusting forward. There were many arrows and annotations around his body. The move looked simple, but the essence of it was in the annotations. The more important issue is that the weapons in this society aren't as advanced as those in my past life. But firearms are rampant in this world, and cold weapons are only good for physical exercise. Liu Sheng frowned as a thought occurred to him. However, the swordsmanship from my dream could be something special. The book has repeatedly mentioned the classification system. Upon further reading, Liu Sheng learned about the classification system. In the book, swordsman Ravel had mentioned higher-order warriors whom he encountered on the battlefield. These higher-order warriors had superhuman bodies, terrific strength, speed, and were almost like war machines with heavy body armor. The descriptions of their battlefield completely overturned Liu Sheng's prior understanding of the world. Liu Sheng thought that the battlefield mentioned in the book was just from a common cold weapon era, but the existence of the higher-order warriors had changed his views. If the content of the book was real, then the higher-order warriors might also be true. Ravel mentioned that when a warrior attained Class 3 or higher, he could slowly train his stamina and improve his physique, Liu Sheng recalled. If all of this is true, Liu Sheng swallowed, looking at the graphics and text, which he had translated. It could not be a figment of his imagination. A total of 5 pictures, when read in sequence, formed a motion picture of a move that swordsman Ravel was most proud of. It was called Furious Blow. It's a simple yet effective move. Liu Sheng had not seen it in person, but he could feel how badass the move was judging from the graphic illustrations. The little figure who wielded the sword was about to strike his opponent at a certain angle from above. Once hit, it would kill his opponent instantly. Liu Sheng exhaled gently and closed the handbook. I'll try to see if I can find any other content in the book tonight. Perhaps I should leave the manor and check out other places. There are already so many things in the manor. What will there be to explore outside? And how are the outdoors going to look like? Why haven't I seen a single living thing even though I've spent such a long time in the manor? The scene outside the window has always been dark. With plenty of questions on his mind, Liu Sheng washed up, took off his clothes, and went to bed. When Liu Sheng went to visit his grandfather in the hospital during the day, he had an unexplainable feeling the moment he saw his grandfather lying on the hospital bed. It was not sadness. His grandfather had never treated his family well the entire time. So naturally, they did not have a close relationship. But in his time of trouble, it was Liu Sheng's family that came to his aid. Having said that, what Liu Sheng saw at that moment was not his grandfather, but a dying old man. The fragility of life, like that of a candle in the storm, was pricking him. I shouldn't overthink. Let's see if I can leave the manor in my dream tonight. Liu Sheng lay in bed, and his eyes slowly closed. In just a few minutes, he entered the dream world. After a short trance, he regained consciousness and slowly opened his eyes. Taking a deep breath, Liu Sheng looked at the low mahogany table in front of him and the handbook of swordsmanship on it. Here I am again. It was still the same study room with no window, only a door leading to the hall. There were 2 large bookshelves filled with large red books. Liu Sheng went up to examine the bookshelves. Previously, he took books from the left of the bookshelves. But now, Liu Sheng wanted to start from the right. Without hesitation, he pulled out a book from the right side of the bookshelf and opened it. Ah! He suddenly frowned and paused as he could not see the text on the book cover. It was all blurry. It was the same for the text inside. Some text even appeared like garbled characters in Liu's. Liu Sheng's heart sank. He quickly put the book down before he picked another red book from the shelf on the right and opened it. Just like the previous one, the text in it was also fuzzy. Liu Sheng frantically flipped through the pages trying to find anything legible, but he found nothing. Dropping the book and going back to the bookshelf on the left, he quickly pulled out a book from the top half of the shelf. This time, he was relieved as the text in the book looked clear. Good. But before Liu Sheng could exhale, he saw blurry pages again. Only the first half of the book was legible, and the second half was blear. His expression changed, and Liu Sheng could not help but feel anxious while he rummaged through the bookshelf, even though he knew it was just a dream. It took him a while, and after he browsed through dozens of books, he finally got a rough idea of the situation. Only a dozen books in conspicuous positions on the left are legible. The rest are all obscure. Liu Sheng sat down by the low table and fell into deep thought. The books on the table are all legible too, especially the handbook of swordsmanship, plus the graphics in it are extremely detailed. He quickly compared the books and found a problem. Of all the readable books, the handbook of swordsmanship was the clearest, followed by the stack of books on the low table and the prominent books on the left shelf. Interesting. Liu Sheng had a conjecture, but he was not very sure about it. I'm not going to worry about this. Let's first explore the outside of the manor. He was becoming more and more fascinated with the dream. Standing still and keeping his cool, Liu Sheng put the book down and slowly walked toward the exit. In contrast to the time he first arrived, he could now perceive more of his surroundings. The coldness of the air, the texture of the floor under his feet, as well as the friction between his clothes and his skin. All these sensations convinced him that something was amiss in his dream. This isn't an ordinary dream. No dream could be so vivid and repeat itself for over a month. Liu Sheng was convinced that he had encountered something abnormal. But since remembering past life memories was a possible thing, he was naturally able to accept and adapt to anything. Liu Sheng pushed the door open and slowly stepped out. He looked to the left and right before he ambled toward the main exit of the manor. He came before the main door and peered up. The purplish-red door, which was made of a certain type of metal with a light wood-grain surface, looked like a grandfather clock. A pattern depicting a circle with 4 different animals in it was visible in the middle section of the door. Liu Sheng had no idea what species those 4 animals were. They seemed like cheetahs with long serrated tails. Above the door was a diamond pattern that looked like a giant vertical eye, staring at everything in the room. Liu Sheng furrowed his brows and reached out to touch the door frame, where repeating letters formed a chain pattern, covering the entire length of the frame. This door seems to be guarding something. Liu Sheng had a strange feeling. Once curiosity overwhelmed him, he reached out and held the door handle. The handle, which had been carved into the shape of a black python head with a pair of lustrous dark red eyes, felt cold in his hand. He could even see the delicate scales on the snake-like handle. He gave it a twist, and the door opened with a quiet click. A vast, foggy woodland appeared before Liu Sheng's eyes. There was a horse lane cutting through the woodland and stretching all the way to the fog in the shade of the trees. Everything in his surroundings appeared to be grayish-black. Liu Sheng swallowed and slowly walked out of the door. Outside, he came upon 3 wooden steps. Their dark red color appeared to be the result of paint splashes. The steps felt soft, and they creaked when he stepped on them, as if they were going to collapse. Liu Sheng stood in front of the entrance and looked around. His surroundings were dark because the trees were blocking the night sky, which was slightly bright, but not bright enough to illuminate the land and woods. It just barely allowed a person to see the outlio of things. Liu Sheng took a few steps forward. Sensing that he was on soft ground, he almost lost his balance and immediately stopped. A faint, strange, rhythmic, and dull noise was heard coming from the distance. Liu Sheng looked in the direction of the sound and noticed something moving seemingly fast in the fog. What is that? Liu Sheng squinted and tried to make out what it was. However, whatever it was suddenly picked up its pace like the pounding of the heart when a human was in a panic. Before Liu Sheng knew it, a tall, quick-moving figure who made a weird puffing sound had emerged from the fog and rushed toward him. The sound got increasingly closer, and Liu Sheng finally knew what it was. Footsteps. His pupils shrank. Liu Sheng continued to reverse until he tripped on the wooden steps and fell on the ground. Damn, he cursed. Before Liu Sheng could get up, the figure sped up like when someone fast-forwarded a video. It appeared to be far away at first, but the next second, the figure with a strangely twisted posture got within meters of him. When Liu Sheng was halfway into getting up, he suddenly froze. His head was flung into the air in a blanket of bloody mist. It crashed into the ajar main door and bounced off before it rolled down and stopped on the wooden steps. His black eyes were dilated. The black figure wielded his sword, its tip touching the ground. Pausing for a moment, the figure then lunged forward to slash Liu Sheng's body with his sword, and blood spattered with every slashing motion of the sword. Mutilated into pieces, Liu Sheng's body parts were strewn around the wooden steps. Liu Sheng suddenly woke up in bed, panting. His body was in extreme pain, and he could still feel the pain from the cut on his neck. Am I dead? The fast-moving figure was like a terrifying monster. There was no hesitation but only madness in the attack. Unfortunately, Liu Sheng did not manage to see the figure's face as the enormous tension and bone-chilling sensation had immobilized him at a critical moment. He could not even scream. Leaning against the headboard, Liu Sheng instinctively reached for his neck. There was no wound on his neck, but somehow he felt the pain. Luckily, the pain was quickly fading. What was that dream about? Liu Sheng could not help but shudder when he recalled the scene of the approaching figure. Liu Sheng got up and sat on the edge of his bed. He ran his fingers through his hair and found it drenched in sweat. It's not the first time I've dreamt about dying, but this time the feeling's entirely something else. Liu Sheng sat there and gasped, trying to calm down. Once his breathing returned to normal, he got up and walked over to sit at his desk. Liu Sheng switched the table lamp on and began to flip through the text he had translated. The most crucial part of the swordsmanship guide is the 5 illustrations. The rest are mainly just stories, Liu Sheng muttered to himself as he looked at the translations. What was that figure in my dream? Is this information useful at all? What if the information and the swordsmanship that exist in the dream are just figments of my imagination? Learning it may cause irreversible damage to my body. Liu Sheng had heard that learning acrobatics or martial arts the wrong way could result in physical disability. So he was somewhat worried that the so-called Handbook of Swordsmanship was just all in his head. Sitting silently by the bed, Liu Sheng was unsettled. It was not until a while later that he fell back in bed and closed his eyes. Yet, he could not sleep anymore because as soon as he shut his eyes, the pain of being killed would strike him. And this went on until dawn. At twilight, Liu Sheng had no choice but to get up. He cooked some noodles with the leftovers from the day before and quickly ate them. After that, he put on his school uniform and headed out to school. Liu Sheng thought that his death was only a dream. However, throughout the day, he felt a slight pain in his heart and a tingle sensation in his neck. After muddled along for the entire day in school, Liu Sheng politely declined Anya Yan's invitation to go to the cassette tape store and dragged himself back home. Liu Sheng tumbled into bed and fell asleep the moment he got home, skipping his dinner. This went on for 2 days before Liu Sheng recovered his spirit. He did not experience any dreams during those 2 days. It was as if his previous nightmare was just an illusion. His dad thought that he was ill and measured his temperature with a thermometer. But it turned out that Liu Sheng was fine, and all his dad could do was urge him to get more rest. The college entrance exam was necessary, but nothing was more important than one's health. After dinner, Liu Sheng lay in bed and looked up at the ceiling in silence. Had the notebook with his translations not been in the desk drawer, he would have thought that it was really a dream. The house phone rang suddenly. His mom, Mrs. Wan Qiu, picked up the telephone. Sheng, your sister's looking for you." Liu Sheng's heart skipped a beat. He quickly got out of bed, scurried into the living room, and took the telephone from his mom. "You should have put on a jacket." Mrs. Wan Qiu held Liu Sheng's hand, and it felt cold, so she was worried. Going into Liu Sheng's bedroom, Mrs. Wan Qiu came out with her son's coat. Liu Sheng replied his mother with a smile. He put on his jacket and sat down on the couch with the telephone in hand. Meanwhile, his elder sister did not say anything but just listened on. Liu Sheng paused and switched the phone to his other ear. "What's up, sis? Nothing. I heard from Mom and Dad that you haven't been feeling well recently. Get more rest and don't overstretch yourself. Getting into a good university is important, but your health comes first." His elder sister, Liu Xiao, sounded worried. "I'm fine. Don't worry about me." Liu Sheng made some calculations in his mind and said, "The exam's still 4 months away. I'm not worried. The recent nightmares have just been affecting my sleep. Is it because you've been reading too many horror stories? I have no idea why. I haven't done anything except study." Liu Sheng played dumb. "Is it because you don't have enough money?" Liu Xiao suddenly lowered her voice. "No. Really, Liu Sheng said. "Don't act tough. I'll send you some money." "You're grown up now, and some expenses are unavoidable," Liu Xiao said. "No, really, sis, you have enough to worry about on your side. I have enough here, don't you worry about me." "All right, it'll stop here. Don't forget to get the money," Liu Xiao said. Liu Sheng heard a female voice call his elder sister, as if asking her to help out with something. "I have something to do here, I'll hang up now," Liu Xiao responded and hurriedly hung up. Liu Sheng put the phone down and looked at the clock on the wall. It was 9 in the evening. His elder sister was still working at that hour, and for this reason, Liu Sheng did not want to become a burden to her. But he knew she was stubborn and would send him the money anyway. "Forget it. I have to sleep well tonight and begin my revision for the college entrance exam tomorrow," Liu Sheng said. The college entrance exam in his current life was not much different from the one in his past life. It was only a ticket to promotion. If he failed the exam and was not accepted into university, he could only go to a vocational school and become a mechanic. There were many vocational schools in Sileo, but they were relatively inferior to universities. Also, the quality of the vocational schools was much lower than the quality of schools in Liu Sheng's past life. If a student failed the college entrance exam and ended up in a vocational school, it basically meant that the person's future was over. There was a huge social gap in the society where few mechanics could leapfrog the divide, and the pay for simple technical jobs was meager. Returning to his bedroom and faleog on his bed, Liu Sheng made up his mind. He would rest well and not worry about the nightmare until he finished the college entrance exam. Covering himself with his quilt, Liu Sheng said goodnight to himself, shut his eyes, and slowly fell asleep. Hearing his own breathing reverberating in an empty room, Liu Sheng opened his eyes and found himself in the familiar hall of the manor. Pieces of silver tableware were scattered on the long table that was covered with the tattered white cloth. Here again, Liu Sheng quickly looked around and his heart sank. On the left was a wall where fuzzy oil paintings had been hung, and on the right was a large square window. Through the gauzy curtains, Liu Sheng could see the fog outside. He quickly moved forward and arrived before the door, which was open before he entered the study room. There he was, in that familiar place once more with the giant open book of clear text still sitting on the low table. Sure enough, back again, Liu Sheng calmed down. Instead of looking at the handbook of swordsmanship, he left the study room and went back out to the hall again. At the window along the side of the living room, Liu Sheng gently drew the curtains open. Beyond the rudimentary wall of the manor was the black forest. It looked like a monster shrouded in the fog. In the yard, within the outer walls of the mansion, were several broken wooden benches and a small swing. There was also something in the corner that looked like a hoe. Liu Sheng closed the curtains and went to check out the other windows, which did not face the main entrance. The figure had come from the main entrance the last time. Liu Sheng paused for a while, standing in the hall and fallowed into deep thought. Then he turned around and started to search the manor. I need a weapon. It'd be better if it was a little longer and wider. Liu Sheng knew what to do. He did not intend to keep staying in the manor and the bizarre dream in which he died, because it could physically affect him in reality. It gave him a sense of crisis, and he had the explicable hunch that if the shadow figure killed him repeatedly, some nasty changes might befall him. It seemed like his physical instincts were warning him. Liu Sheng rummaged in the hall, but found nothing. Hence, he entered the study room. Yet, he discovered nothing except books there. Backing out from the study room, Liu Sheng decided to search the kitchen. After he found a pointed kitchlo knife there, he rushed back to the bedroom. There was a king-sized wooden bed in the middle of the bedroom. Additionally, there was a wardrobe, a dressing table, and a large wooden box along the wall. Liu Sheng opened the wooden box, but saw that it was empty. So, he swept his eyes around and walked up to the dressing table to pull open the drawer in which he found a few colored teenage-style hairbands. But the colors of the hairbands looked old and faded. He closed the drawer and checked out the other spots. Soon, something leaning against the wall in the corner behind the curtains caught Liu Sheng's attention. Liu Sheng strode nervously to the corner and grabbed the object. It was a cross-sword without a sheath. As Liu Sheng took the sword, its silvery black tip slid across the floor, producing a faint noise. He carefully lifted the sword in his hands. The long sword was not hefty, felt like 5 pounds, and its length was just right, about waist-high. The crossguard and the blade formed a standard cross, though the shape looked a little stretched. When Liu Sheng clenched the hilt with both hands, he could feel the rough fabric wrapped around the handle. The hilt and the blade formed a seamless body without any apparent joint marks, and on the blade near the hilt there was a vertical eye pattern that looked identical to the one on the door. Liu Sheng waved the sword to see how it felt. To his dismay, it was a little too clunky. Let's see if there's anything else. Liu Sheng poked around the bedroom for a while, but still found nothing, so he had no choice but to return to the hall. I'll need to be more careful not to make a sound this time. If I manage, it should be fine. Liu Sheng was a bundle of nerves when the thought of his previous death came to mind. But it did not mean that he would not venture outside. After all, he knew that he would not die for real because it was just a dream. Liu Sheng was very curious about the world outside and would not be satisfied without going out to explore a little. With the sword in hand, Liu Sheng stood stark before the door and took a few deep breaths to calm himself. This time, I'll do it as quietly as possible. It'll be all right as long as that thing doesn't notice me. He carefully reached for the snake-shaped door handle and gave it a gentle twist. The door unlocked with a click and opened slightly, just enough for Liu Sheng to pass through. Carrying the sword in his hands, Liu Sheng slowly slipped out. Once he stepped outside, Liu Sheng could feel the chilly wind blowing in his face. He shivered involuntarily as his body temperature plummeted and his joints stiffened. This feels more real than the last time. It doesn't feel like in a dream. Liu Sheng's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and the strange feeling made him uneasy. He stood right outside the door, peeked around furtively, and decided not to get down the flight of steps. This wooden stairway squeaked too loud the last time. I think I should just jump directly onto the ground so that I don't make any sound. With a plan in mind, Liu Sheng slowly moved to the right of the staircase. The humid and cold fog was surging slowly in his surroundings. Liu Sheng looked down and saw old scratches, as well as many small pebbles on the dark yellow floor under his feet. He had to maneuver past the gravel with caution. Holding his breath, he quickly reached the edge of the veranda and jumped down silently, landing on the ground with a soft thump. With his feet planted on the black soil, Liu Sheng peered into the distance. There was no strange sound coming from the direction of the bridleway. I made it. I just have to remain vigilant. Then I won't attract any attention. He breathed a sigh of relief. Shrouded in the fog, Liu Sheng started to anxiously scan his surroundings. Behind him was the open hall door, from which he exited earlier. On his left and right were all dark and dense woodlands. All he could see was the bridle path in front of him. Liu Sheng took a deep breath and slowly circumvented the manor by going to the left. Soon, he arrived at the yard where the hall window faced. The yard had a swing, which was made by tying a black wooden shelf between two dead tree trunks with thick hemp rope. There were a few decaying benches scattered randomly in the yard, and a small withered garden in the corner of the wall. Liu Sheng wandered around for some time but discovered nothing. As such, he headed to the back of the house. He suddenly stopped in his tracks when he heard something. Liu Sheng was rooted to the spot in the fog, with the manor on his right and the small yard on his left. Clenching the sword in his hands and planting his feet on the ground, he looked straight ahead. He heard something dragging on the ground, and it sounded disturbingly all too familiar. He tensed up and stood still, staring into the dark fog from the backyard, which was just around the corner. The sound gradually got closer and closer. Then, the owner of the sound finally emerged. It was a weird person covered with black pustules. The figure carried a long black sword, and its hilt was fused together with his hand. Other than that, the figure looked just like a typical human. The human figure's face, his eyes, nose, and mouth, was fully covered with thick gray leoin, and there were some bloodstains on it. At about 1.9 meters tall, he was taller than Liu Sheng. The human figure also spotted Liu Sheng the moment Liu Sheng saw him emerging from the fog. He then stumped toward Liu Sheng. His steps were slow, and the tip of his sword produced a sheeing sound as it was dragged across the ground. What the heck is this? Liu Sheng's blood ran cold, and he shrank back involuntarily. But compared with his last experience of death, not only did he calm down quicker this time, but he also managed to think of a countermeasure. He traced his eyes downward and noticed that the monster's right leg was crippled. Large chunks of flesh were missing underneath his long pants. He doesn't look that impressive. Liu Sheng clenched the hilt of his sword and had no intention of going away. He wanted to test how good the monster was. Liu Sheng figured that since the entrance to the house was nearby, he could turn around and quickly run back inside, should things go wrong. With an emergency withdrawal plan in mind, Liu Sheng decided to make contact with the living creature. "Hey, can you understand me?" Liu Sheng spoke in Zileo in a low voice. The strange human figure did not respond, but just continued to trudge toward him. "Are you a resident here? I come in peace. Can you tell me what this place is?" Liu Sheng tried to communicate with him. When the human figure showed no response while he approached, Liu Sheng sensed that something was wrong, and began to retreat slowly. Right when Liu Sheng and the human figure were less than 3 meters apart from each other, the human figure suddenly lunged forth, thrusting his sword forward. The tip of his black sword hit the cross-shaped sword in Liu Sheng's hand with a clang, and the sharp percussive sound reverberated in the air. Liu Sheng lost his balance and almost tumbled to the ground. His blood ran cold, and he immediately turned around and ran, dragging the sword along as he scrambled onto the wooden staircase. He slipped through the doorway back into the hall before he slammed the door shut and snapped on the latches. Just as Liu Sheng thought that he was safe, he heard the same hissing sound behind him. He turned around slowly with all his muscles in a knot. To his surprise, a rotten swordsman with the same leoin cloth wrapped around his face was limping toward him. When did this thing come in here? Liu Sheng was scared stiff. With his back against the door, he clasped the hilt of his sword and felt a chill run up his spine. No, this is a different one. Liu Sheng quickly figured it out. A large chunk of this swordsman's right arm was missing, as if something had bitten it off. The difference was hard to miss. I'm in deep sh. Liu Sheng did not want to die again. It had given him a severe hangover philiog for the past days. As the thing got closer, Liu Sheng identified the pustules on the swordsman's neck as small blisters. They were dense and bulging. Clenching the hilt of his sword and staring dead at his opponent, Liu Sheng's muscles tightened. Suddenly, the rotten swordsman lunged forward, thrusting the sword in his right hand straight into Liu Sheng's chest. Liu Sheng roared and raised his sword in the air in an effort to parry his opponent's attack from above, but he missed. Liu Sheng felt a great pain in his chest and lost strength in his hand. But the momentum kept the sword's motion going, and it sliced off the rotten swordsman's arm. However, it only slashed off a small bit of flesh. Looking down at his chest, Liu Sheng noticed that his enemy's black sword had pierced the left side of his chest, instantly immobilizing him. Again. His vision went black, and Liu Sheng lost consciousness. After an unknown amount of time, Liu Sheng woke up on his bed at home. The sky outside was gray, and the sun was about to rise as he heard roosters crowing in the distance. I died again. Liu Sheng touched the area on his chest where his heart was and felt a tingle sensation. It felt so real. He slowly sat up and discovered that his underwear, which he had just changed into the previous night, was now drenched in sweat. He got out of bed and quickly took a new set of clothes. Following that, he entered the bathroom to clean the sweat off his body with hot water before he put on the clean set of attire. I can't go on like this. I have to think of a way. Liu Sheng sat at his desk, opening the drawer to take out the translated notes, which were written in neat and tidy Chinese characters. The most secure way he could come up with to prevent anyone in this world from understanding it except him. It was the best encryption method. Having checked Onlio before, the illustrations and annotations seem to suggest that the swordsmanship is a real thing. But I've never learned anything like this. Nevertheless, it's not a figment of my imagination, but something real from another place. Liu Sheng was absolutely convinced now. The dream world is filled with dangers. A defenseless person like me will only be slaughtered like cattle there. I could barely hurt that crippled monster. He stared at his notes and the illustrations in front of him. I have to go out and explore if I want to find out the secrets of my dream. However, I couldn't even defend myself against the wounded monster. I have to find a way. Liu Sheng sat in silence and soon thought of an idea. Since I already have the handbook of swordsmanship with me, I should try to find out if there's any way to learn it. Only then will I know whether this thing's real or not and improve my self-defense skills. After all, I still have a cross sword in my dream. Liu Sheng relaxed and made up his mind. Before his parents got up, Liu Sheng quickly ate his breakfast and headed straight to school. After the morning class, he could not wait to leave and wander around downtown Huaisha. In this era where the internet was still primitive, Liu Sheng could only go out and scout the area to find places where he could learn European swordsmanship, which was the rarest of the martial arts in this part of the world. Huaisha, where Liu Sheng lived in, may have been a small town, but it was a port town with buslog international trading activity. Many foreigners went there and became the driving force behind the growth of its local industries. Liu Sheng first went to a street in Huaisha, where most foreigners stayed. Soon he found what he was looking for, 2 associations and a club. The 2 associations charged expensive membership fees, so Liu Sheng decided not to visit them. Now, there was only one option left. It looks run down, but I'm sure it's a lot cheaper. Standing in the middle of the quiet street, Liu Sheng looked up at the shop on the 2nd floor, where an inconspicuous wooden plaque with 3 rows of little characters was hung. Tengchong Swordsmanship Club, Black Mud Street Office, Black Mud Street Pigeon Association. Apparently, the 3 entities shared the same signboard. Below the sign was a dirty and dilapidated stairway. The wooden steps squeaked loudly when people stepped on them. 2 hooligans were squatting on the staircase, puffing on their cigarettes while chatting. Liu Sheng looked down at his school uniform, grabbed his school bag tightly in his arms, and climbed up the stairs. When he reached the 2nd floor, Liu Sheng saw 3 arrows drawn with red chalk on the wall, each pointing in 3 different directions. One of the arrows indicated that Tengchong Swordsmanship Club was on the right. He followed that arrow and turned into the corridor on the 2nd floor. After he walked a dozen meters, Liu Sheng stopped in front of an open office door with a sign on it that read, Tengchong Swordsmanship Club. It was pretty empty inside with only 3 rectangular black desks forming a large table in one corner, and 3 people sitting there working on something. Liu Sheng knocked on the door. Hello? Is this the Tengchong Swordsmanship Club? A girl sitting closest to the entrance turned to look at him. Who are you? Would like to learn orthodox Naxi swordsmanship. Is it available here? Liu Sheng replied. You've come to the right place. The girl suddenly smiled. We're the most professional non-profit hobby club in Huaisha. Hobby club. Yeah, a club for people sharing a common interest, the girl explained. Come in. Not many people are interested in Naxi swordsmanship because boxing and MMA are the in things now. Martial arts like ancient Naxi swordsmanship require learners to bring their own swords. It's quite troublesome and pretty impractical. So no one makes it to the end unless they're really interested in it. The girl smiled and pulled a chair out for Liu Sheng to sit on. As they sat down, Liu Sheng's eyes darted around the place. The walls of the entire office were bare, and the chair under his butt was shaky. This is a non-profit club, hence the condition of our place. The girl smiled. My name is Sophie Yi. You can call me Sister Shu. The fact that you found this place shows your immense interest in Naxi swordsmanship. Yes, but I'm a newbie who knows nothing about swordsmanship. I can only learn the most basic moves. Will you teach me? Liu Sheng asked. No problem, as long as you're willing to learn. Sophie Yi passed Liu Sheng a brochure. This is the standard fee structure. You can choose the package you want. Liu Sheng took the brochure and glanced at it. Basic course, 18 lessons, 2 lessons per week. Tuition fee, YK 400. Advanced course, 18 lessons, 1 lesson per week. Tuition, Y 1000. On the lower section of the brochure was an introduction of the club's 2 coaches, Chloe Huan, a woman, and Du Xinlei, a man. They taught students of the opposite sex, and both possessed 3rd grade national athlete certificates. Liu Sheng's face twitched when he saw the coach's qualification. 3rd grade athletes were worthless. Generally speaking, anyone with slightly above average skills could already pass the certification. In some remote areas of Zilio, there were even cases where people could buy the certificate. Only 1st and 2nd grade certificates had value. It looked like this was only a mediocre club. Nonetheless, he would give it a try since it was better than not learning at all. Is there a trial lesson? I'm a student. You know, students don't have much money, Liu Sheng said. Of course, the first lesson is free. What time slot would you prefer? Chloe Huan's mainly in charge of male students, while Du Xinlei the female students, Sophie Yi said with a smile. Liu Sheng looked at the clock on the wall. It's 2:00 in the afternoon now. I have no classes this afternoon. Can I start now? How long is a lesson? 40 minutes. Let me take you to Coach Chloe Huan to see if she has time. Sophie Yi talked to the other 2 people, who got up and brought Liu Sheng out of the door. They turned left and went up 1 more floor before they stood on the landing. There were 2 large classrooms on both sides of the stairway, and shouts could be heard coming from the classes. It was mostly female voices on the left and male voices on the right. Your class is on the right. Let me ask the coach first. Sophie Yi got Liu Sheng to wait outside the door while she entered the classroom on the right. The room was as large as 4 classrooms in his school combined. The floor was covered with thick cushions and surrounded by bare-bone concrete walls. There were also 2 rows of fluorescent lamps on the ceiling. A woman wearing tight-fitting gray trousers and a white short-sleeved t-shirt was holding a black wooden stick, demonstrating for 3 boys. The long-legged woman with her hair in a ponytail had fair skin and a small waist. Liu Sheng gave her an 8 just by looking at her from the side. The woman noticed Sophie Yi and turned to say hello. The 2 talked in whispers for a while. Then, Sophie Yi motioned for Liu Sheng to come in. You can take a trial lesson before you sign up. All right. Liu Sheng nodded and went forward. Looking at the simple stick in her hand, his mouth twitched involuntarily. Chloe Huan, the swordsmanship coach here. Let's continue with the lesson. The woman was comely with a petite mouth and a pair of apricot eyes that were filled with determination. She had to be the stubborn type, Liu Sheng thought. Standing behind the 3 students, Liu Sheng listened quietly. Once you get your posture right, the next step is your eyes. Pay attention to your opponent's point of force, which is any muscle and tendon that will trigger motions. Chloe Huan held the wooden stick upright with both hands beside her right ear. This is a roof. Since there's a new student here today, we're going to do some revision. A posture is a starter move designed for fast attacks that target the opponent's weak points. A roof is one of them. It's the most basic swordsmanship posture, which all of you must master. Liu Sheng listened attentively, and before he knew it, 10 minutes had passed. Chloe Huan just explained the basics briefly and delved into the more difficult part quickly. Fortunately, she gave the other students free time to practice, and they all moved to the side with wooden sticks in their hands. Chloe Huan then asked Liu Sheng to pick up a stick from the corner of the classroom. First time Chloe Huan asked, "Yup, I'm a newbie." Liu Sheng nodded. "Why do you want to learn Naxi swordsmanship?" Chloe Huan swung the thick wooden stick, creating an airburst sound. Liu Sheng squinted, staring at the movements of her stick. "Because I'm interested." "You're not sincere." Chloe Huan smiled. "Well, since you have no foundation at all, I'll start with the basics." She held the stick and lifted it to the side of her right ear. The foundation of Naxi swordsmanship is divided into postures, basic moves, and sword skills. Our club mainly teaches basic postures and moves. We won't talk about sword skills, since you're still a long way from it. Understood. Liu Sheng nodded. Naxi swordsmanship is a delicate sword technique introduced by an ancient foreign kingdom. Many people think that this sword technique is crude and chaotic, but this perception is a big mistake. Chloe Huan raised the stick over her head, This is also one of the basic postures. Roof is typically used when not wearing body armor. The sword is above the head so that striking from above is more natural. The posture with the sword near the ear is only used when we wear body armor. Since the helmet is tall, we place the long sword next to the ear. Got it. Liu Sheng raised the stick and made the same posture. After the postures, you have the basic moves. The basic moves of Naxi swordsmanship are mainly thrust, strike, and swirl. If you register, you'll learn these 3 moves. Chloe Huan began to demonstrate the simple roof and one of the basic moves, thrust. Soon, the 40-minute class ended. Liu Sheng had probably just scratched the surface, and the next step, paying the fee, was the most crucial part. I don't have money right now. Can I pay for it partially? First, Liu Sheng asked. He only had over Y100 in his pocket. His elder sister mentioned that she would send him money, but Liu Sheng did not want to rely on her. As a space-time traveler, he would be ashamed of himself if he could not even earn some money. Partially, how much Chloe Huan asked haplessly. 100. I'll take a quarter of the course first, Liu Sheng said. I'll continue the rest of the course after I pay the balance. All right. Chloe Huan thought for a moment and nodded. The two discussed the schedule, trying to make lessons on the weekends when Liu Sheng had no school. After that, Liu Sheng paid the money and got the payment receipt in one hand and a black stick in the other. Before he left, he had asked and learned that the club would be vacant after 4 in the afternoon. As such, he could come and interact with the other students, as well as learn how to use the protective body armor and helmets for apparent reasons. Of course, he would have to pay if he damaged any of them. Liu Sheng did not engage in a long conversation with his parents after he got home. After dinner, he went back to his bedroom to quickly finish his homework before he practiced the swordsmanship's basic postures using the wooden stick. The long sword, which was also a cross sword, was the only weapon Liu Sheng could find in his dream. And connected to it was the swordsmanship book that he had translated. So Liu Sheng was eager to prove whether the sword moves were useful. Once he was done practicing the postures and the first basic move, Liu Sheng took a shower and hit the sack. The night went by without a dream. After school the next day, Liu Sheng hurried over to the club in the afternoon just to catch a few students sparring in the classroom. He enthusiastically put on the armor, which was made of bamboo, and wielded his wooden stick. Then he began to spar with the other students. Since everyone was still a rookie, the practice session naturally looked a little messy. Liu Sheng did not dream again for the next several days. Instead, he went to the club to practice what he had learned each day. No one in the club was as hard-working as Liu Sheng. When Chloe Huan saw the persistence in Liu Sheng, who always practiced late into the night before going home, she decided to give Liu Sheng some individual attention. Another week had passed, and Liu Sheng finally got the opportunity to enter the nightmare again. The sound of the tip of the sword being dragged across the ground was audible before Liu Sheng could even open his eyes. And as soon as his vision was restored, he looked in the direction of the sound and found that the rotten, crippled swordsman was still in the hall, limping and lugging his sword along. The swordsman was in front of an oil painting on the left side of the wall, and the long black sword that grew from his hand emitted a sharp "sheeing" as he moved. Liu Sheng came to his senses and saw the silver sword, which he had previously taken out of the bedroom in a corner. Glancing at the rotten swordsman and seeing that the swordsman did not notice him because the swordsman's back was facing him, Liu Sheng carefully circumvented the big dining table to get to the sword near the door. After learning the basics of the swordsmanship for a week, Liu Sheng had pretty much figured out which move had killed him the last time. It was the simple thrust move. Thrusting was the most natural move but also the hardest to master. In Naxi swordsmanship, making the thrust move required the body to be in a sideways position with the arm extending forward. This was so that the sword could thrust as far out as possible to kill the opponent while dodging the opponent's attack. Liu Sheng moved very slowly and soon reached the door where the sword was. Keeping an eye on the rotten swordsman, he quietly bent over to pick up the long sword with his right hand. After a week of basic postures and thrusting practice, Liu Sheng was keen to try out his skill to see if he could kill the monster. "Has just a slow cripple. I just need to be careful, then it'll be fine." Liu Sheng estimated the distance. The monster seemed to rely on hearing to judge his surroundings. As long as he did not make a sound, launching a surprise attack from behind should work. Making up his mind, Liu Sheng held the sword and inched toward the rotten swordsman. Once he got close enough, he clenched his sword with both hands and slowly lifted it near his right ear in the roof posture. Liu Sheng had been eating and sleeping with the roof posture and thrusting move for the past week. He imagined his fight with the rotten swordsman in his mind every single day. Now, the day that he most looked forward to had finally arrived. Under the dark night sky in the hall, Liu Sheng raised his long sword and gritted his teeth as he and the rotten swordsman were just 3 steps apart. Liu Sheng roared and struck down from above. In a split second, the rotten swordsman turned around, drawing a black arc in the air with his right arm and accurately blocking Liu Sheng's attack. As the 2 metal swords collided, Liu Sheng felt numb, even pain in his wrist. The sword in his hand vibrated so much that he almost lost grip of it. But Liu Sheng gritted his teeth and pressed his sword down with all his might while he kicked his opponent in the knee. The rotten swordsman's legs were slow, and they failed to dodge Liu Sheng's kick. His knee snapped with a loud cracking sound. Losing his balance, the swordsman's right hand dipped with his sword. Liu Sheng's blade involuntarily followed, slipping off the swordsman's black sword before cutting into something soft below. Black blood splattered like black ink all over the place, turning the inky floor black. The rotten swordsman stumbled to the ground with black blood spurting out from the left side of his neck. With the sword in his hand, Liu Sheng looked on and was dumbfounded as the monster fell to the ground. Black smoke rose from his body, penetrating and disappearing into Liu Sheng's chest. In a split second, countless fragmented images flashed across Liu Sheng's mind. Niliog on the floor and letting go of the sword in his hand, Liu Sheng buried his head in his hands. He wanted to scream but lacked the strength to do so because of his convulsions and severe headache. The black smoke began to evaporate from his body, and that went on for anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour. He was not sure how long. In his Niliog position, Liu Sheng struggled and removed his hands from his face. His eyes were bloodshot, but it looked like there were black spiderwebs around his black pupils, Ravel green. With a complicated expression on his face, Liu Sheng stood up and peered at the rotten swordsman who lay face down on the floor. "Ravel, you said that you would love me forever. Have you forgotten?" a voice suddenly rang out behind Liu Sheng. He turned around, and his blood ran cold when he saw no one behind him. Did I just experience a hallucination? Liu Sheng gritted his teeth and gasped as he quickly picked the sword up from the floor. The blade was damaged. It was chipped, and there were many fine cracks around the chipped area. The sword is ruined. Perhaps it's too old. The fact that an old sword made of ordinary material could last through a fight is good enough. Liu Sheng put his long sword down and cast his eyes on the long black sword in the rotten swordsman's right arm. Taking a deep breath, Liu Sheng recalled what he saw when the black gaseous substance rushed into his chest. It was the memory fragments of Ravel, the owner of the manor. Those memories and vague, incomplete voices kept echoing in his head up to that moment before slowly receding. He seemed to have experienced the bits and pieces of Ravel's life. Fortunately, however, the number of memories flashing into his mind was minimal, otherwise he would have gone crazy. Liu Sheng bent down to examine the rotten swordsman's body to make sure that the swordsman could no longer move for good. After that, he raised his sword, aimed it at the swordsman's right arm, and struck down. Despite the chip on the blade, the sword still made a clean cut on the rotten swordsman's arm. Liu Sheng did not encounter much resistance, and that had to do with the high degree of decay in the swordsman's body, which had weakened the bone. Or else, it would not have been so easy. A moment later, Liu Sheng sat in the kitchen, carefully examining the black sword that he had severed off the rotten swordsman's arm. At the length of an arm and width of a palm, the black sword had a smooth glass-like coating on its surface. Its hilt had a black crossguard, and just like the silver sword earlier, it was a cross-shaped sword. On the blade near the grip was the mark of a vertical eye identical to the one on the silver sword. It looks like Ravel's the rotten swordsman. Liu Sheng could make out the identity of the swordsman once he saw the fragmented memories in his mind's eye. The most unbelievable thing is that I can absorb his memories. He reached for the hilt of the black sword and gently lifted the sword. The black sword was a tad heavier, about 1.5 times than the previous silver sword. Waving the sword in his hand, Liu Sheng found it surprisingly handy. With that sense of familiarity, he planted his feet on the floor as energy began to rise from his legs to his waist, then to the shoulders and arms. With the aid of this new strength, he accurately thrust the sword forward in a straight layout, leaving behind a black trail along with a faint airburst. What just happened? Liu Sheng was startled. The smooth thrusting move was completely instinctual without any hesitation, as if he had practiced the move many times before. After a pause, Liu Sheng waved the sword again to try out other moves. The other moves did not feel the same as the thrust earlier, no matter how many times he tried. So he may as well just practice the thrusting move. His repeated practice of the move produced airbursts in the kitchen. Liu Sheng found the move absolutely awesome. Wait a minute. This seems similar to the move that the rotten swordsman used before. It was this very move that killed Liu Sheng the last time, and he had only begun to notice the familiarity as he practiced it. He stabbed the sword forward again. As simple as it may have seemed, the basic move became more potent than it appeared with limb and body coordination. The attack point is the same, the heart on the left side of the chest. Recalliog the fragmented memories that he had seen, Liu Sheng could vaguely deduce that they were the last memories of the rotten swordsman. There's nothing wrong with acquiring the rotten swordsman's fragmented memories. After all, anything can happen in dreams. Once he calmed down, Liu Sheng began to enjoy his newfound strength. Taking the black sword and leaving the kitchen, Liu Sheng went to examine the body of the rotten swordsman in the hall and made sure that everything was all right. After that, he grabbed the body by its clothes to drag and toss it outside through the doorway. He then closed the door and snapped the latches on. Since there was no water in the manor, Liu Sheng wiped the black blood off his hands, using the curtain as a rag. Then he returned to the study room and sat down, wanting to continue his memorization of the swordsmanship notes. Very quickly, Liu Sheng was surprised to find that he could understand some of the words in the handbook. With the combination of context and illustrations, he could roughly make out the meaning. This must be the result of acquiring Ravel's memory. Liu Sheng was overjoyed. He could not believe that killing a monster in his dream had given him such an advantage. He quickly scanned the handbook of swordsmanship and finished it in its entirety. Just as he had expected, content on the swordsmanship was only a tiny part of the handbook. Only a few pages with illustrations mentioned Ravel's famous sword technique, Furious Blow. Liu Sheng gave it a quick read in combination with the previous and latter pages. Furious Blow isn't so much Ravel's famous sword technique, but a kind of conventional longsword technique. It's just that Ravel really mastered it so it became famous. He flipped the pages, his eyes scanning the text. Unlike what the book title suggests, most parts of the book talk about Ravel's travels, battles, experiences, and stuff like that. Nothing more than blowing his own horn. Shaking his head, Liu Sheng put the book down. After he acquired some of Ravel's memories, he could recognize quite a number of new words when he reread the books, which he had difficulty understanding earlier. Liu Sheng stood up, scanned the bookshelf, and quickly found another book that he could read. This book was different from the other large books. Its cover was blank, there was content only in the first half of the book, and the writing was all scribbled. It looks like a notepad. Liu Sheng began to carefully read the text at the top of the first page. The sky has turned dark again. Dun comes again. He is leaving to seek help, but things have become irreparable. Leaving will only bring a more horrible outcome. As the subsequent Liu was illegible, Liu Sheng simply turned to the next page. The nights are getting longer and the winds colder. Dun has left. My last best friend. I wish you a safe journey. Liu Sheng found it surprisingly easy to read since the text was written in simple language. So he continued to browse through the pages. I am old and my physical strength has declined dramatically. Polly has also grown up. She struck down my sword for the first time today. I am very pleased. Many chickens and ducks have gone missing from the manor lately. I do not know if they are dead or something else. The wind is freezing. I hope everything can go back to the beginning. Except for the parts that he could not understand, Liu Sheng found page after page of the author's daily life. They were bits and pieces about Ravel and his granddaughter Polly. But Ravel's words contained a faint sense of despair and depression, as if some grave danger was looming in the world outside. Liu Sheng kept flipping and soon found these on the last few legible pages. Did something also happen to Blackfeather City's patrol troop? Even the last shield has... It is hopeless now. It looks like I will have to go to Lasabelle and get my new sword. The old sword can no longer hold up. With the protection of my armor, Polly will be all right. She will be able to make it out safely. Liu Sheng knitted his brows together as at that point the text got blurry, but he had learned a few essential things. First, there was probably a place called Blackfeather City. Second, the place where Ravel went to collect his sword was called Lasabel. It was likely a place for buying and selling weapons. Perhaps he could find some protective gear there. After spending a week in the club, Liu Sheng was no longer totally clueless about such weapons. He had learned on Liu that a full set of body armor was absolutely vital for improving survival in the cold weapon era. Blackfeather City, Lasabel. Liu Sheng repeated the names in his mind, feeling that his dream was getting as real as it was interesting. He could not wait to find out what happened to Blackfeather City and why Ravel, a Class 2 swordsman, had turned into a rotten monster. Liu Sheng shouted as he thrust the wooden stick forward repeatedly. Standing among a group of students, Liu Sheng appeared inconspicuous, but if one were to take a closer look, his moves and postures were the most authentic. Chloe Huan observed him carefully with her arms crossed, and she knitted her brows together. "He's improving fast," she whispered. By her side was Sophie Yi, who was sipping hot water from the mug in her hand. "It's only been 3 weeks, but this kid's a born swordsman. It looks like we found a gem." Chloe Huan shook her head and said, "Even if he's a gem, there's no way to send him to an official competition because we're not a proper institution. Even coaches like us have to register for exams elsewhere. If he wants to get the certification, it would have to be at his own expense. He's just a beginner, it's too early to talk about that." Sophie Yi smiled. "But if we can train him well, who knows, he might win some competitions and make our club famous." "I hope so." Chloe Huan was somewhat enthused. Truth be told, in the world of sports, youthfulness was an asset. There were Naxi swordsmanship competitions held in Shilio, and as long as Liu Sheng could make it to the city-level championships, he would be much better off than staying in the club. The entire swordsmanship club relied on the patronage of a few rich kids to stay afloat and cover its daily operational costs. Chloe Huan and Du Xinlai's original intention for recruiting students was to earn some money to keep their club running and reduce expenses at the same time. "We're just half-baked coaches, if I may say so," Chloe Huan said. "I've only learned Naxi swordsmanship for 2 years, while Du Xinlai 3. It's not complicated and entirely dependent on the talent of the learners. There are just so many moves to learn after all." Sophie Yi smiled and took another sip of hot water before she continued. "It was Chloe and a few others who came up with this idea for fun. Only Du Xinlai and you have taken it so seriously. Had they been concerned about losing money, they would not have set this club up." "You're probably right." Chloe Huan forced a smile, and just as she was about to speak further, it was time for the students to spar. "Well, everyone, pay attention. The sparring session starts now. Please refrain from attacking the head and lower body. Whose body gets touched first loses." Chloe Huan clapped her hands and began to instruct everyone to put on their armor. Drenched in sweat, Liu Sheng lowered his stick. He felt like he had just woken up in a body of water. A strange sense of familiarity had corrected his moves the entire time during practice. "This is weird. Could it be that whatever happens in the dream affects reality?" Liu Sheng became a little nervous. Since Kiliog, the rotten swordsman in his dream, he had not given it much thought until the practice session, when he vaguely felt something amiss. His moves and agility were on another level now, as though he had practiced them many times. Some of his moves were fluid, while some still seemed to be rudimentary. Liu Sheng stood transfixed with the wooden stick in his hand. He had tested a few moves earlier and found the crux of the problem. "My basic move, the thrust, is way better than the last time." Liu Sheng's pupils contracted as the changes in his dream came to mind. "I acquired the memory and skills of the rotten swordsman after I killed him in the dream. Now, even reality has—" Filiog confused, Liu Sheng paused. He was fearful, but simultaneously looking forward to the supernatural phenomenon. If Ravel, whom I have killed, really exists, does it mean that there's also a place called Blackfeather City? Liu Sheng began to have butterflies in his stomach when he realized that his dreams were not what he initially thought them to be, only a little special. If such things could happen in his dream, did it mean that similar changes also occurred in other parts of the world? Is this world still the ordinary world that I've come to know? Liu Sheng clenched his wooden stick a little tighter. "Liu Sheng, Fiona Xia, you two spar?" Chloe Huan's voice jolted Liu Sheng out of his thoughts. Liu Sheng looked around. Fiona Xia, who was relatively more skillful among the students, was already standing opposite him with full-body armor on, and a black wooden stick in her hand. She pulled her visor down and stood in the roof posture by raising her stick near her ear. Liu Sheng finally snapped out of it. He quickly put on the bamboo armor and helmet, then proceeded to pull down his visor. Through the wire mesh, he could see his opponent. The other students also began to find their sparring partners. All the students there were novices, and Liu Sheng had a second change of classmates in just a few weeks, because most of them only lasted for a few lessons. Once their initial enthusiasm died down, they stopped coming. There was no surprise to this phenomenon. Who would still want to practice swordsmanship in this era when a bullet was all it took to solve problems? Not to mention, one had to get a permit to carry a sword. Ready, 3, 2, 1, go. Chloe Huan had divided the students into groups. She raised her right arm and waved. Liu Sheng quickly lifted his stick and charged aggressively at his opponent. Fiona Xia, a 183-pound girl standing at 1.7 meters tall, the same as Liu Sheng, quickly riposted with a quick forward sweep. However, Liu Sheng changed tactics midway. It turned out that he was only faking the strike from above, and his actual intention was to thrust his wooden stick straight at Fiona Xia. Liu Sheng's black stick hit Fiona Xia first, before Fiona Xia's strike from above could hit Liu Sheng. Dropping her stick with her hand pressed on her stomach, Fiona Xia squatted down and cried in pain. Standing still with his thrusting posture frozen in place, Liu Sheng looked a little unresponsive. He had just instinctively pulled off Ravel's famous thrust. It really works. His face did not reveal much of an expression, but deep down, Liu Sheng was stunned. The thrust maneuver was so much more fearsome in actual combat than the other moves. Fiona Xia was the one who made the first move, but when the speeds on both sides were similar, the straight Liu distance between the stick and the opponent became the factor that separated victory from defeat. One more round. After a short break, Fiona Xia got to her feet with her stick and threw herself into the same posture again. Liu Sheng was silent for a moment, eager to know whether he had really undergone any changes. Soon, Liu Sheng hit his opponent in succession, and Fiona Xia screamed in pain. It quickly caught the attention of the other students. The wooden stick in Fiona Xia's hand was struck off her hand. Unwilling to concede defeat, Fiona Xia stubbornly went to pick her stick up again. "That's enough. The difference of strength between you two is too large. Let me try." Chloe Huan walked over to stop Fiona Xia. "Liu Sheng has made tremendous improvement. He may only know one move, but he uses it better than anyone else." Fiona Xia was adamant. "I just didn't get enough rest yesterday. Otherwise, I wouldn't—" "It's not your fault." Chloe Huan shook her head and interrupted Fiona Xia. Holding a wooden stick up to her ear, Chloe Huan stood opposite Liu Sheng. "Your fighting style reminds me of the battlefield swordsmanship materials I saw before. The military mainly utilized the Naxi swordsmanship's thrust move. Coach, you—" Liu Sheng was hesitant. "We are sparring." Chloe Huan, bowing slightly with her eyes lowered, was extremely serious. Liu Sheng stood with his mouth agape. Noticing Chloe Huan's silence, he knew that he had to take on the challenge. After all, Liu Sheng was also keen to know how good he had become after he acquired Ravel's muscle memory. The two stood face to face, holding their wooden sticks in the air like they were real swords. Sophie Yi stood to the side with a hint of interest on her face. "The rest of you, step aside. Let me begin." Astonished by someone having the guts to take on Coach Chloe Huan, a few students stopped their practice to watch the battle. Fiona Xia cupped her hands and moved to the side, observing Liu Sheng. She did not think that she had lost. It was just a lack of rest the day before. "Let's see how this kid gets crushed," Fiona Xia murmured. After attending the class for over 2 months, she was the most senior student in the class and naturally found it shameful that a newcomer could defeat her. Begin loud shouts ensued as the two sticks collided. At that moment, everyone, including Sophie Yi, seemed to see two swords, not sticks, in the fight. Lunging forward and pressing her wooden stick against Liu Sheng's, Chloe Huan bent her elbow to try to knock Liu Sheng's weapon away. This move, which she had yet to teach her students, looked like a simple combination of grab and sword techniques, but took her a long time to master. Chloe Huan did not hold back as she wanted to defeat Liu Sheng in the first round to defend her pride as a coach. But Chloe Huan was shocked when she discovered that they both were maintaining an equally long distance from each other. Unable to beat Liu Sheng in the first round, Chloe Huan was forced to change her tactics. Otherwise, she would only lose face if the battle dragged on. Awesome Sophie Yi's face turned solemn. Distance calculation is the heart of Naxi swordsmanship. Its primary purpose is to first get in a position where the opponent can't reach you, then look for opportunities to strike the opponent's weak point. However, Chloe Huan couldn't even get the upper hand just now. There's something in this rookie. Really, a new student was in awe. With a little foundation before joining the club, this new student had practiced with Chloe Huan many times, and each time, Chloe Huan would defeat him in an instant. Now, seeing how Chloe Huan and Liu Sheng had been evenly matched for several rounds, the student was amazed. His improvement's too fast, a male student said in a low voice. I remember that he just started coming 3 weeks ago. Has he learned this before? Unlikely. I think he's born for this kind of sport. Sophie Yi shook her head. Just as they spoke, there was a change in the battle. Each time Chloe Huan attacked, Liu Sheng would dodge with much agility. How would she face her other students when she could not even defeat a 3-week-old newbie? So Chloe Huan became anxious. She wanted to win and had to win decisively. Yet, the more emotional she got, the more anxious she got, and the more mistakes she made in her moves. Her face soon turned red. At first, Liu Sheng did not realize what was happening because he was immersed in the instinctive control of his muscle memory. When Liu Sheng finally noticed Chloe Huan's strange movements and expressions, he realized that he had overdone it and quickly revealed an opening by slowing down his riposte on the right on purpose. Seeing the opportunity, Chloe Huan was delighted and quickly struck Liu Sheng through the opening. Hit on the right rib with his chest wide open, Liu Sheng retreated several steps back. Just as Liu Sheng was about to concede defeat, Chloe Huan, with eyes turned red, roared and struck down from above with both hands. She knew that Liu Sheng lost on purpose, but the battle had dragged on for too long, and it would not look good on her to be bogged down by a student. She needed to maintain her reputation by achieving an absolute win. Not allowing Liu Sheng to concede defeat, Chloe Huan decided to further take advantage of Liu Sheng's goodwill by launching a quick attack from above. Wanting to stop the sparring session and not seeing what was coming, the surprise attack caught Liu Sheng off guard. In a split second, he instinctively clenched his stick with one hand and thrust it straight forward while his body moved sideways. Chloe Huan's wooden stick struck down from above with full force, but barely scraped Liu Sheng's mask. Had the stick hit him on the head directly, he would have been badly hurt even with the helmet on. Almost at the same time, Liu Sheng's wooden stick struck Chloe Huan in her abdomen. Dropping her stick to the floor, she groaned and squatted down with both hands on her stomach, appearing to be in acute pain. Sensing that things had gone terribly wrong, Liu Sheng quickly went up to check on Chloe Huan. Liu Sheng. Sophie Yi shouted at Liu Sheng. What did you do? This is just a training session. Why did you use so much force walking over and squatting next to Chloe Huan? Sophie Yi checked her injury. Liu Sheng's purposeful loss and Chloe Huan's willful pursuit happened so fast that no one in their surroundings noticed what had happened. Liu Sheng stood in the same spot silently. He just followed his instincts, evading, then riposting. It was Ravel's muscle memory that controlled him. It seemed that the blow was a heavy one to Chloe Huan, even with the bamboo body armor. For a while, she could not get to her feet. But if Liu Sheng had not fought back, Chloe Huan would have struck him good and proper. Chloe Huan obviously did it on purpose, pretending not to see that Liu Sheng was taking a dive. How long have you been learning this? Stop fooling us by claiming to be a newbie, Sophie Yi said coldly as she got to her feet. What do you mean? Liu Sheng was stunned. Stop pretending. Are you here for a dojo challenge? Sophie Yi felt that she had guessed correctly. Take your money back and get the hell out of here. You're not welcome here. Sophie Yi showed Liu Sheng the door. After taking a look at Chloe Huan's injury and seeing a large bruise on her abdomen, Sophie Yi could not believe that Liu Sheng could be so ruthless. Liu Sheng did not say anything. It was just a misunderstanding. Chloe Huan deliberately made use of the opportunity to attack Liu Sheng to save her own face. Had he been an ordinary student, things would not have developed that way. But Liu Sheng was anything but an average student. Nonetheless, he had achieved what he wanted and tested how potent Ravel's swordsmanship was. It looks like you're not going to explain yourself. Goodbye then. Liu Sheng saw that Chloe Huan had no intention of clearing the air, and the other students had begun to resent him with Sophie Yi influencing the narrative. He felt that it was pointless to stay there any longer. Taking off his armor and dropping the wooden stick on the floor, Liu Sheng walked to the classroom's exit. It was only then that he noticed the incident had attracted many onlookers. Many of them were female students from next door, and some were people he had never seen before. "Excuse me." Liu Sheng headed directly to the office, where he was given a refund of his Y100. With his money in hand, Liu Sheng went straight downstairs. The sky was getting dark. Standing downstairs, Liu Sheng looked back at the signboard of the Tengchong Swordsmanship Club. He never thought things would end up that way, with him having to leave the club after just 3 weeks of lessons. Chloe Huan seemed like a good coach at first, but it turned out that to save face, she, not wanting to harp on it anymore. Liu Sheng shook his head, since he could not explain what had happened to himself either. Just as he turned around and was about to leave, someone called him. "Wait a minute, buddy." Suddenly, a tall man rushed up to him from behind and patted him on the shoulder.